Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. There she is. There she is. Good morning, Sher. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
There you
It was,
are. There you
yeah,
are.
it was taking just a moment for some reason on my end to do its
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. For
So,
the connection to connect. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I am a little plugged up this morning just from allergies, but it's nothing that I can't manage. So,
No problem. No problem. Gotta breathe through it. Just gotta breathe through it. That's all. Give your body time. Well, give your body time to develop kind of, acclimatization to it, and then
yes, yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I mean, sometimes I kind of wonder if it isn't
what Americans call
stuff.
allergies aren't actually true allergies. Yeah.
Well, it's an irritant from something or
Right.
another that
Right.
floats around in the
Exactly.
air.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, wow.
It's
Okay.
actually natural filtration.
And that's what?
It's your body's responding with its natural filtration response. So when there's lots of dust or pollen, you don't want to be breathing all that in. So you get
No.
excess mucus to absorb it all. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
meant to be. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. That
Yep.
makes
Yep.
sense. Um, still, have you ever had those weeks, days, whatever, where it feels like you could probably go through 100 days within just a few?
Yes. Yes. Living by the minute or by the second. Yes. It's very potent. It's very potent. Yeah.
that that has described this past week um, to a T. Uh, And
Ah,
I was trying to keep track and keep things written down. Um, keep the thoughts fresh, always focused on, all right, what is this? What is the, maybe implication is the right word, but what is this for this moment? What is this
yeah.
meaning to me? What am I needing to do
Yeah,
or not do?
implications is the right word. Implications are very powerful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, starting, I mean, and I can take and work my, actually, and then I saw that you went through and looked at a lot of the posts. Well, those posts are kind of a reflection of everything that has been going on.
Yeah.
Um, and the um the situation over the weekend, was it the weekend where I was contacted by somebody in the morning, um, saying that she was um, possibly kin to Larry. That was
Oh, it's
surprising.
interesting. Yeah. Wow.
That was surprising. So okay, that was the question that I had asked you about. Okay, so
Yeah.
discernment is for understanding, and if we come from a part, if we come from a stance of understanding or seeking to understand, then
Yeah.
we can see. I didn't want to get traumatized. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
want to make a big thing of it. I knew that my old self would probably crumble into just a mushy mess if I allowed my old patterns, my old
Exactly.
beliefs
Exactly.
inward. And
Yeah.
I didn't. It's like, no, I'm not going to go there. So I'm really proud of myself for at least
Exactly.
recognizing that, oh, here's an opportunity to show what I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. Practice. Practice. You got to
Yeah.
practice and and apply and self-proof, right?
Well,
Self-proof
absolutely.
is very important. It's very, very, very important.
I had
It's
three
most critical.
examples. I had three examples of self-proof within a matter of days. Um,
How cool is that? How cool is
so
that?
I thought, okay, universe, you must really want me to understand this. So I'm going to
Yes,
become a scientist
yes,
now.
yes. So look at the bigger picture from the universe. Besides the opportunity to implement and apply those specific understandings, insights, discernments, awarenesses, etc., right?
Uh-huh,
Now you
uh-huh.
say, well, why do I need to do it so much? Because the universe is giving you a pattern. Look at those instances and make the abstraction from that and say what's common between them. What's common between them is that you are behaving differently, right? So you behave
Oh
differently
my
in
goodness.
X, behave differently in Y, behave differently in Z, behave differently in A, B, C, right? So all of them, you are behaving differently. So the message is get a clue, sure, you are different. You are different. You've changed. You've changed. You are no longer the same person. Yeah. And once your inner bureaucrats see concrete evidence of this, they go like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, you have changed. Because you can tell them all you like, hey, I've changed. No, yeah, right, yeah, right. Yeah, we need proof. We need proof, right? We want to see the documents, in triplicate. Yeah. So you see, you get these things in multiples because they want to see it. Yeah. They want the proof. So now they say, oh, yeah, wow, we just thought you were shining us on, but actually, you really have changed. Here's the proof. So that's very important. It's
Oh my
very important.
gosh. Well, so I could actually then go back and
Exactly.
specifically, I could look for specific proof of these changes.
Exactly.
I could
Exactly.
name every single one of
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. And that's, I don't know what's going on with my voice. That's quite amazing. I don't know, but anyway. So going, and when you make the posts, that helps as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually does. Well, then
Yeah.
I
The
I
documenting
was
of the proof. Yeah. Yeah. So
I
you could,
was
proof of change
uh-huh.
series, or a proof of unbinding, yeah, or unbound proof, yeah, or proof
Okay.
unbound. That'd be a good title, proof unbound, yeah,
Post fund
or
binding.
something like
Okay,
that. I
hold
don't know,
on.
whatever. Yeah,
I'm writing
it
this
just,
down.
yeah. I'm just saying, those are very powerful for the inner bureaucrats. It demonstrate this, that there
I'm gonna
is change.
I'm gonna see if I can. I hope it doesn't mess up our call. Remember I'm on just my phone, so
Yeah, yeah. No,
um I'm gonna pull up, see if I can find ones that I wonder why that posted twice. Facebook has really been kind of interesting lately. Um
uh,
oh, okay. Yeah, the other one is one of them is spending, one of the things that I used to do was always focus, I would try to focus on.
sorry. I mean, I'm fully appreciative of the fact that you said it in the past tense, but maybe let's add a refinement to that. You said one of the things I used to do. That's not actually technically correct,
Okay.
because it's the I of you now. You never did that shit. One of the things my old self used to do.
Oh,
Oh, big
okay.
difference.
I
Yeah.
do like that. That is a big difference.
It is different. I mean, that's, it's old Sher or old self, it's historic self, bygone self, knucklehead self. I'm no longer there. I can't relate to it. I can't identify. I don't have the same motivations, the energies, the intentions. I don't have any of that shit anymore. We're understanding. So I'm not that anymore. Yeah.
I
Can't relate.
really like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that goes back to the example that I wrote about yesterday when I listened to that recording. And I'm telling you, so to me, there was a marked difference, just not only
Yeah.
in the verbiage that I was using, but
Yes.
tone,
Yeah.
the
Yes. It
tone
is.
of my voice.
It is
I could
super good to
actually,
hear yourself like that. It's
well,
huge.
I could hear what people were referring to in the past when they said that I was flat or seemed edgy.
Yeah.
Um, I could hear it, and it's like, okay, it wasn't offensive, but you could definitely
Ah,
tell it was somebody who was in pain.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then to,
And it's almost a bit of a desperation. You can kind of feel yourself reaching and grabbing at stuff too in order to pull yourself out of whatever.
yeah, yeah, like, reaching up for the vines or something if you're sinking in quicksand.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're just
Exactly.
grasping for anything that you can hang on to. And
And that
technically,
and that
that's
will
what it
that
felt
will
like.
and that's why some of the people said, maybe the self-promotion or the ambition side of it, it's part of it, that we reach for anything, whether it is in any field, in order to pull ourselves out. So yeah, it's all good. It's all part of the magic of the process. It's brilliant stuff.
So self promotion isn't always
Oh no, it's like everything else.
Bad.
I mean, it all depends how you're doing it. Self promotion is very necessary. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Well, and that's when we go back to that aspiration. We're either doing it,
Right.
what are we aspiring to? What is our goal?
Exactly.
Correct? Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And your intent.
Um,
I mean, and also, most self promotion it's not really very forthright. So there's a lot of BS involved, but you can just be straight up with yourself and with everybody else and say, hey, look, I'm good at what I do. A year ago, you
right.
want to partake or not? And that's no problem. It's so.
Right.
It's just about earnestness and honesty and some measure of capital diplomacy as well. Right?
That's true. So the post I did I was trying to be conscientious of
Uh,
and respectful of the memory of Larry. You know,
mm,
by chance, anybody that knows Larry would happen across the post that I wrote about the season of my life.
yeah,
And so when I put in there, I was trying to I was trying to look at what that relationship was and what did it mean. Yes, it was a good relationship. However, it did have its issues.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm never going to hide anything about that.
yeah,
Um, but I was very proud of myself to be able to write that I am a discerning and understanding woman
yeah, yeah,
and actually mean that.
yes, yes,
It's one
yes,
thing to give yourself a label, but it's
yeah,
another thing to completely feel it and believe it.
and own it, and
That's
own it.
that's
It's
the
one
word I
thing to
was looking
believe it.
for. Owning it.
Belief is very shallow. It doesn't go very deep. Yeah, but owning it, that's a big deal. That's a big,
I think so. Where was the next one that was really interesting to me? I'm kind of scrolling through some of these. Oh, my nose. I wish it would just. Um, this one here was a takeaway. You can't see it, but um, when I was talking about if healing is to take place, we must choose what's not ours to carry. That one
yeah,
was still from the same situation. I was trying to process through after I got that message and after I spoke with you. I was trying to process through what did it mean to me? And was I going to let this upset or turn my life upside down? And
yeah,
that's when I decided, no, I
yeah,
didn't need to do that. Instead, I loved where I reached out to you and it's like, okay, is it this, this, and this? When I wrote about the payoff from my efforts to attach, I did not want to attach my emotions because the me of then, my old self,
yes,
would have attached to all kinds of negative, traumatic feelings and meanings,
yeah,
um, telling myself, well, the whole marriage was just a sham. Who was I fooling myself to be?
yeah,
I'm living in a bubble again. No, instead, I stood up outside the bubble. I was very happy that I was able to look at the entire picture, the past all the way to the present, and then decide, well, I understand this woman's position. She's just looking for
yeah.
information to help bring her closure to a story in her life. I'm not
Uh,
able to help her, and I wish her well.
Interesting. So is she? What is she to Larry?
She apparently is his daughter.
Oh wow! And
Yeah.
what does she want? Um,
Well, to find closure, to
uh,
put a face to a name, and
just
I
she didn't know him in real life.
nope,
Ah,
nope. He's just listed on the birth certificate.
oh, interesting. Okay. So did
Mhm.
you fill her in, about this and give her that, and she went on her way and everything's fine?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
I just told her no. He's been passed on over 3 years.
yeah.
And then she told me that she had reached out to him twice, once in 2013 and another time in 2015. Both messages were never read.
Oh,
And told her, I said, I'm really sorry about that. But I said, I don't doubt what you're saying, but there's nothing really that I could do to offer you any kind of assistance.
Yeah.
So she understood, and she's like, well, I'm really
And she
sorry for his
wanted to know
loss.
what kind of a guy he was,
Yeah, exactly. Well,
So,
I had told her, I said, here's the link to his memorial page. There's a lot of information there if you'd like to know anything about him. But I just really didn't want to open myself up to being somebody's friend with a
yeah,
situation that I wasn't comfortable with.
yeah,
So
yeah. I know, very
I
good. You're
thought,
under no obligation. It's very powerful, that choice.
right,
It's very powerful because also there's a bigger point involved, right? In this, that it's unhooking from the helping insistence, right?
it's unhooking for,
From
oh, it
from
was,
a habit of
it was,
needing to help, right? So here was
yes,
somebody who was asking for help, and you chose to say no because you're not obligated. This is very important. This is very, very important for our personal freedom. That we are not obligated to help. We are obligated to not harm, but we are not obligated to help. We don't have to be positive. We just do not have to be negative, right? So this
yes,
is great because you weren't forced to help simply out of that help reflex, right? Which for some people
yes,
is a complete and utter reflex. Of course, it leads to them being manipulated like crazy, right?
yes,
Intentionally by life and unintentionally, right? Just inadvertent manipulation simply because they can't help themselves. They're like junkies, right? They help junkies.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And that's no good. You can't have that. You got to be free. So the ability to say no to somebody who wants some help, that's it. I mean, she can read your posts as well. And,
yeah,
so, on the,
that's right,
it's about Larry, she can search through them and all that. So
that's
she can get
right.
some idea, about him. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what, okay,
Besides
noises
which,
outside.
I mean, if you've come this far without knowing who he is, what difference is it really going to make to know who he
Yes,
was? Yeah,
yeah, she's 36.
yeah.
And
Yeah. So go ahead.
I gave her the most obvious, um, I gave her the most obvious, answer or solution, I should say. And I used the word give intentionally because that was the
Yeah,
only thing I could offer her. I said,
yeah, yeah,
if you were in touch with your biological mother, I recommend you show her this picture and have her identify whether or not this is the person that she's claiming to be, Larry
yeah.
Day.
That's also good. Before you go digging, make sure it's the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. So she came back with the answer of, well, there's a problem with that. And I thought, okay. So my red flags went up
Yeah.
and I decided,
What was the
I
problem? Is the mother not alive anymore?
no, the mother is alive, but she said
Oh,
she's into drugs. And so she, by
oh,
choice, doesn't have much contact with her. It's like,
yeah,
well, if you really want to know, what harm is it to say,
yeah,
hey, look at this picture? Okay.
yeah.
So I just said,
Also,
well,
yeah.
I
Go ahead.
just wished her well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But not for her now. But if one thinks this through, what exactly are you hoping to achieve?
That's
You
what
want
I
to
was
know your
asking her.
father is what? So you find out your father's a big shit, or you find out he's a nice guy. How is it going to make any difference to you? Is it going
Right.
to change who you are? You've come this far on your own. To imagine that it's going to make a difference, that's just lunacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beside which, I mean, you've got a 50-50 chance. It might be a nice guy or not. So why, if you really think it is going to make a difference to you, why risk it? Doesn't
Uh,
seem worth it
no,
to me. Yeah,
no, it didn't. And so I thought it
yeah,
was really interesting.
yeah,
Um, and like I said, I could understand her if she were coming from, and I couldn't make the determination whether she was genuine or not. I didn't even
yeah,
want to stress her with
yeah.
that.
You didn't need to. You trusted without trusting. You didn't need to. It was great.
You're right, I did. I
Yeah,
absolutely did. And I trusted my choice, which was I'm only going to give her this much space. After
yeah,
that, the door is closed and I need to move on about my day. I wasn't going to give it any more time.
yeah,
And that's what happened.
There you go. Very
And that's
simple.
what's been actually happening more and more and more. I make a
Yeah.
decision. It used to take hours and sometimes days to get to a choice. And now, so it makes me excited because something
Exactly.
happens and I do it. It's habit. I have developed some very, very good habits.
Excellent.
Um,
Excellent.
and it makes me feel kind of grown up.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. You know, it doesn't matter when we grow up. It simply matters that we do.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so the more I got to looking through a lot of the posts and things, the more I thought, okay, these are really becoming very positive. They're not grounded in pain. They're actual. I've been posting not like full, here's how you do it kind of lessons, but just short, simple explanations of this is what this is. Here's a tiny example of what happened or how I applied it, and there you go. Because I figured if people are really interested, I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours putting a post together for it not to be read. So what I'd like to do then, what I've been doing is just using my judgment in how much is too much and how much is too little.
Exactly. And also, if you make the post for you, then it doesn't
Yes,
really matter. Yeah,
that's
the
right.
effort is worth it from the expression, understanding, that
Yeah,
self-reflection, self-perspective. So who cares? If people read it, they read it. They don't, it doesn't matter.
yeah. So then the last thing is I decided that a good thing to do to wrap up my weekend was to start thinking about all the ways that I have changed, that I have grown.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's where I've been going. And
Yeah.
already this morning I've picked up that I've made choices,
Yeah.
easier, developed the habit of zooming out. I could do a contrast and comparison of my old self rather quickly, rather than becoming my old self. I can look to the past and go, oh, well, that's kind of cool because before I would have done X and now I do Y. And then deciding my moods has been absolutely enormous. I already knew that.
Just watching your moods.
Deciding,
Oh,
choosing my moods.
exactly. It's huge. I'm assuming you are practicing before you open your eyes. Moment you wake up, hey, what's my mood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I lay there. I gave myself 10 minutes this morning. I just kind of sat there after the alarm went off. My first thought was, ugh, the alarm. And it's like, no, stop.
There you go. Choose your mood. Exactly.
Yep. I said, nope, stop. And I put the phone down. I wasn't about to scroll through the phone or anything right away. And I didn't touch it. Just turned off the alarm and I just laid there for a moment. It's like, okay, so what do I feel today?
What do I wish to feel today? Not what
I
do
like
I.
that. Okay. All right. What do I
It's a
wish
big
to feel?
difference, right? What
Yes,
do
there
I
is.
feel today implies your mood is coming from somewhere else. No, what do I wish to feel? So that exercise isn't about the mood that you choose. It is about getting into the habit of mood choosing. Yeah. So anything, it doesn't really matter. You see what I mean? It's not like, oh, well, I'm going to choose the best mood every day and you just do that. No, it's about developing the habit of being able to choose. So that later in the day, if you're feeling a little bit disgruntled, say, wait a second. The question is not why am I feeling this way? Why am I choosing to feel this way?
Oh.
Very big difference, right? See, it's very subtle, but it's a big issue. Yeah.
One single word can change the entire context of a sentence.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So then this is completely off topic. Yes and no, it's not. On the module of feeling and believing, I've gone through both. But I don't understand why it doesn't really matter, but it's showing me that, because I didn't mark it as complete. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
Also, I don't know, you still have access? Sometimes the time runs out. Okay. Oh, you do it. Yeah, if you don't mark them as having seen it, then it will come up here.
Okay. Well, I'm going to mark it as complete, but I don't want it like taking me out of my screen because there was a really neat exercise, deliberate mood. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
And I have been, if you hear noise in the background, that's you on the,
Yeah, no problem.
on the program. I did do deliberate mood, which I was really excited about that because I thought, okay, finally, I understand this. And I understand. I really, really feel like I understand this concept of feeling beliefs, but it's something that I know I'm always will be working at on a daily basis, making a conscious effort. And if I were to lay out and name every single process that I do throughout the day, it's no wonder I go to bed tired.
Yeah, exactly. But, becoming aware of it will enable you to start applying efficiency and effectiveness practices. And that's it. After a while, you'll just start being more efficient and effective.
Okay. Well, because then it becomes habit, right? That's where we want to get to be.
But again, we don't want it to become unconscious habit again and just mindless habit. We want it to be deliberate habit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That I understand.
Otherwise, we just fall in the same trap again. But just from, like with your sewing, if you completely oblivious with your sewing, that's not going to work either. You're going to have very squiffy seams and you probably get your fingers under the needle and all sorts of stuff, right? It requires awareness to use that machine, yes?
Yes. Yes,
even
it does.
though it's very smooth and fluid and you don't have to be really so that's the same thing. The more you do it in deliberation, the more innate it becomes. So yes, it becomes habitual, but it's more of an innateness rather than an habituation, which is slightly different, because you don't lose. The innateness means you maintain the conscious part of it. You are just learning to do more things more quickly, more easily, more fluidly, more directly, right?
Yeah.
Other than habitually. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
I have two images that come to mind. One being an awkward teenager, 13, 14 years old, trying to fuddle their way through relationships, early relationships in school. And as you mature, you become more fluid, with your approaches, or what do you call it? One of those puppies with the great big feet. They finally grow into that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this movie really quick.
Okay, well, before we get to the movie, I don't want to forget. Since discernment keeps coming up for you, you have a big basket or a bin or a jar or something of buttons, I'm assuming, yes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. So if you take those and you dump them onto a tray and you start going through them, what happens? And I'm assuming you do this every now and then for different reasons, yes?
Yeah, looking for a specific button or what happens? Well,
okay.
It looks a bit overwhelming. It can.
Yeah, right. But okay, you're looking for a particular button. But let's say you're not looking for a particular button and you dump out that bin and now you go through it. Okay, what other reasons could you have for going through it? You could be going through it to sort it, right? And you go, big, small, color, texture, shape, right? All sorts of ways to sort that. Okay, dump them back into the tray and say, no, we're not interested in sorting. What about going through that as an exercise of discernment?
Choosing.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, if I'm not sorting, I'm discerning. Well, what the heck am I going to be doing here? Oh, okay. Well, look at this button. Well, okay. Is this button whole? Is it sound? Does it have any cracks? Is it style still there? Is it, not made out of, what's it, melamine or something, that old plastic?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So now I'm sorting it by functionality, but also I'm discerning value. I'm discerning usefulness. Yeah, I'm discerning if this is something that is worth being in my tray. Now, you may say, well, this melamine one, I'm not going to use it for any outfits I'm going to make. However, for a repair, absolutely, it's worthwhile. Yes.
Yeah.
So now you're somebody like CJ could say, but nobody wears buttons like that anymore. He said, well, you'll be surprised. I got some very old customers who have favorite items, and when they lose a button like this, they can't find it anyway. It's very precious. So these are of the most precious, not the least. Discernment. See.
Okay.
It's looking at it beyond the surface, looking at the layers, looking at the meanings, looking at the implications. Yeah.
That I understand much better.
Yeah. So I just,
get
you know, I
beyond the
always like to use
surface.
analogies that are real world. And you
Yeah.
can literally practice this with CJ, you know, to say, okay, and also you could discern potentially stories from what does this button mean to you? What does it refer? And you say, and even, you know, whether it's historical or, you know, some mnemonic trigger for you, say, you know,
Uh-huh.
nothing to do with me, but you know what, it's something. So there's all sorts of ways that we can discern, but it's really looking past just the obvious. And that button, you know, the old melanin button, I don't know if it's melanin, I think is the word, I'm not sure, but anyway, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that you're right. It
Oh, it is
reminded
melanin.
me of the
Okay.
old, yeah,
Right.
they
Right.
remind me of the old melamine dishes, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were like, it was like before plastic came out. This was like the
Uh-huh.
first iteration of plastic. Yeah, it's
Yes.
sort of hard. It's a little bit brittle. You know, it's not
Yes.
very good plastic. But anyway, so yeah, you know, that's a really good example of the discernment that, you know, you would automatically just on surface think, oh, it's old, it's rubbish, it's nobody will want it. But actually, and that's the thing with discernment. It's but actually, right?
Oh, that I understand. That
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Value, usefulness. Okay. No,
And
that just makes
you
more sense to
apply
me.
that with this potential daughter. You applied, but actually with her, you know, but actually I don't have to help you, you know, but actually I'm not in a space where, you know, being in that space, you know, just as a gift of generosity and largesse, I'm not there. Discernment, right? You applied it
Yes.
to your personal things. You didn't have to, right? That's
I
very
think it'd
cool.
be interesting to see how many ways in a day I do apply discernment and I'm just not
Exactly,
aware of it.
exactly.
That would be an interesting exercise for me to do,
Yeah, yeah,
to see
exactly.
where I'm applying it.
Yeah.
How am I applying? Okay, I'm writing
So,
this one
you know,
down too.
and also it's just not to jump to that first step, obvious thing that people go to automatically and immediately. Yeah. So, like for instance, when you said about I did something I used to, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and I applied
yeah.
discernment to that to say, no, 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 the I is the automatic default assumption, right? And I said,
Right.
no, the me of then used to, which is different. See, so it's just going past that obvious surfaceness, like with that button. That's an obvious surface assumption or
But it
conclusion
changes
or
it too,
idea
though.
or perspective or perception, right? And it's not that it's, you know, assumptions can be negative. I mean, yes, on in
Yeah.
general, that's so. But you do keep those because for somebody who really, really needs it, they're going to come to you. Yeah,
But
because anybody who knows anything knows that all tailors keep a jar of buttons, right?
uh-huh, uh-huh.
I mean, I never seen a jar of buttons from a tailor. I just did it through, you know, logical extrapolation.
Yeah.
You
Do you know
know,
what I
just
find
understanding
interesting
how people
still?
work. You know, it's like carpenters keep nails and stuff like that. You know, it's just a tool
Yeah.
of your.
I have put out, small little notices and advertisements, that yes, hey, I'll do some light mending and sewing.
Yeah,
But I haven't gotten any bites on it. And then I
interesting.
thought about it, but here's the interesting thing. I
Yeah,
thought two reasons. One, either I'm not supposed to be doing that,
interesting.
or I am subconsciously somewhere telling myself I really don't want to do that anymore, and I'm not putting
Blocking.
forth the
Yeah,
energy to do it.
yeah,
So I'm okay with it either way. I'm not worried about it.
yeah.
I had some mending to do, and I got in there and got my machine out and started doing some mending. And I thought, do I miss this? What do I really think of this? Is this something that I would find joy and pleasure in again? Not so much.
And do I need to do this? If you don't need
Yes.
to, hey, there's other options. You know, even if you need to, you
Yeah.
can say, if I really, really don't like doing it, I'll find some other thing that I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, before we go into the movie, because I do want to give that some good time. Um,
Yeah.
um, um, I probably have sent you a link to her or not. I'm not sure, but Jane Friedman, Friie or EI. No, IE, Friedman. Yeah, Jane Friedman. She'll come up.
Okay.
Jane Friedman writing, she'll come up. So subscribe to her, and particularly she's got a main newsletter, and then there's one that she only sends on the weekends. It's called Electric something, right? and
Okay.
that's very useful because it's yes, it's more or less writing, but every now and then she puts in stuff that it's doesn't really make a difference, but just fun, like electronic stuff for links she's found, useful tools.
Yeah.
I've got very many useful stuff out of that, and some of them are
Okay.
just fun. Like she had this last weekend, she found a little program that takes your writing and it takes out all the letters and only leaves the punctuation. So
Oh.
yeah, it's more fun. You can you print it out and say, there you go, it's my story in punctuation only. And it's interesting because you can actually see differences in different writings. So yeah, share stuff like that as well, fun stuff. But a lot of those
That's
tools
cool.
are very useful tools, and websites, links, very very powerful stuff. So yeah, so a regular daily newsletter, it's about writing tips, and then the Saturday one is a little more and got all these other stuff in it. So electric something on Saturdays. But Jane Friedman, yeah. And she
I
does
look for.
podcasts. I mean, she's huge in the writing industry, and just she gives a lot of free stuff. So, she
Nice.
goes around giving seminars and stuff. But she's cool. I like her. It's very nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah,
Well, and then speaking of the writing and of discernment, etc., you know how I was working through doing the kind of a rebranding, but not. Um, I don't want to get rid of my Unbound
yeah. No,
process and
the Unbound
program.
is very powerful branding. That's
Yes,
true.
I don't want to do that, and I had to ask myself honestly: was I being paranoid in my thinking that perhaps um, I was thinking I was being led astray for not good intentions, let's say, that somebody was trying to get me go in a different direction, based on what they wanted to gain out of it, which was to, pull apart something that was really good.
Mm.
So I was talking with, not two, but with two of my upcoming guests. And one of them actually I'm talking with tomorrow. And they had received the same vibe, the same feeling. So I thought, okay, rather than make a great big deal out of it, rather than tell myself, oh, well, this is just a horrific way for a person to be, leave it at it is what it is. To salvage and work my brand the way I want it to, the way I would like it to be,
Yeah,
and leave things there.
exactly,
And that's what I've been doing. And
exactly.
when I've been doing that, I've noticed that my writing style was getting back to more of myself. It didn't feel
Yeah,
forced. It didn't feel cheap,
no,
because I wasn't promoting and pushing and saying, hey, buy my product, which I don't like
exactly.
to do.
Yeah,
I don't want people to buy coaching. If they need some assistance with coaching, wonderful. Otherwise, may you get some benefit from what I
exactly,
write,
exactly,
and leave it at that.
exactly. And also,
Um,
when you think about it, anybody who is buying coaching is already a little bitty and not an ideal client in a sense, right?
yeah, yeah. So I was really pleased with my overall ability. That it was a powerful weekend with my overall ability to discern for myself and make my own choices, and not based on somebody else's recommendations, not based on, oh, well, you should do this, which, I don't like that word, but you should do this, you should do that. If you do this, you're going to make, $1 million by the end of the year. Well, okay, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah, yeah,
But I would rather have my integrity intact and keep a good reputation than be some hotshot influencer, um,
right,
who is so busy and wrapped up in marketing that
right,
I lose
exactly,
sight of my purpose
exactly,
and
exactly,
message.
exactly. Very, very, very important. That's a discernment right there. Look
Yeah.
past that. Yes. Oh wow. This could be great, but at what cost? At what point? At what effort?
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, and
And I
then
had,
that becomes such a grind after a while that it's
yeah.
miserable. Yeah,
Well,
I see people doing this all day long, and it's like really,
I looked at a perfect example was Miles burning out. because he
Exactly.
was chasing the wrong purpose. He had the right intent,
Exactly.
I
There's no
believe.
love, passion. Exactly.
Yeah, but he traded off. There we go, back to the effort reward. He lost with the trade-off, I think, of
Yeah.
putting in too much effort into one particular point and lost sight of his passion.
Yeah.
So I thought, no, I don't want to wind up like that. I don't want to lose everything that is very dear to me. Just because the brand itself, Unbound, all of that means a lot. And it has helped a lot of people in many different ways.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. And I thought to myself, okay, so that's where I have to bring this up. I don't know how to pronounce the wife's name, the Ronan's wife.
Oh, Tayo.
Tayo. Okay.
I would
When I
imagine.
watched her,
Yeah.
right off the bat, I was connecting with her. I understood who she was, what she was doing, and what her purpose was. What a powerful, quiet.
Okay. Oh, you better give me a full explanation, because I don't want to assume that I know what you mean here.
Okay.
Right? Because when you say her purpose, her focus, again, you kind of just imagining that I'm
Support.
going to see her the same way. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So lay out what you saw,
All right. Let me go back. Let me find the little notes where I wrote.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Oh,
Oh,
I
good.
did. I took notes.
It's important.
Let me find them. I hope I didn't. Let me see. I know I took notes because it was huge for me.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
very
Well, I can
moving.
tell you. I can tell you some of the things that I saw right off the bat was her. And we don't know her backstory, which
Yeah.
that's okay. I
Yeah.
didn't need to know her backstory. I
Exactly.
was watching and it's like, am I being judgmental of this character? No. Instead, what I was doing is,
Before you go any further, the movie, I don't know, I think I may have mentioned it, but it's very important to view the movie within its cultural milieu, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I understood that. Where I just found it, okay, first off, the contrast between she and now I'm hoping I watched the right one. This one was all subtitled. And
Yeah, it's subtitled.
okay,
It's a samurai movie. Yeah, it's an old
okay, yep,
Japanese movie. Yeah. If
yes,
you
okay,
Tayo, it's her name. His name is Ihei. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
right
that's
one.
just all right.
Well, you
So
enjoyed it, and it was a beautiful movie, so it's the right one.
I absolutely loved it. I was really kind of surprised at the end. I don't understand. I'm going to have to go back and watch those last few moments again
Yeah.
of the end of the movie, just based on the fact of how they ended it. The emperor or the property owner, whatever,
The
was
Lord,
racing up
yeah.
to.
The technical term, or the Japanese term for him, is a daimyo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was racing up to catch up to him, to saying, no,
Yeah.
I made a mistake. Of course, I want you to be my master at arms. And then the couple looked so happy looking into their future, as though, and they cut it off. And I'm like, well, wait, is he going to accept the job? Is he going to try? What? No. Which I
Yeah.
would,
Well, I think they just left it that
yeah,
it's like, of course he's catching up to him eventually, and they're just enjoying it. And the
yeah,
beauty is that they were enjoying regardless of what was to come. In other words, they had a
that's it.
quiet independence of being.
Okay. That one
Because
I
they,
did
they
catch.
they did want the job, but also now that it wasn't going to happen, they found joy and bliss. And also it's very important, by the way, if you watch as they're walking up, you'll see they walk at these, like, separate, but not right next to each other, right? And
Yes.
also, if you remember, when they were when he was visiting the Lord, when they walked across in his garden across the bridge there, right, you see them
Uh-huh.
walking one behind each other. That is part of the culture, part of the tradition, right? That's how you're supposed to do things, right? So everything is very prescribed. It's very precise, very detailed. Now,
Well, and
but
so
right at the
was,
very end, you see the two of them are side by side.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it makes the point that that doesn't matter. If the Lord he's going to catch up to them. There's no way he's not going to catch up to them. But they
Right.
are in bliss. They're in contentment. And this is the ideal mood with which to now continue this new relationship. Yeah. So it's going to all turn out wonderful, in other words.
But she was
She was what? Okay, go ahead. Go.
okay.
Your impressions of her when you first see her.
She had a very deliberate presence. That was my first impression. Was her presence was very deliberate. It was not forceful, but it was very commanding, just in the gentleness of her movements. Every single movement she made, very well thought out, very deliberate and specific.
Yes. And that is something that is quite astonishing, really. When you look at that, okay, yes, there's the culture, but just take going out in and out of the door, right? You go
Very
down on your
deliberate.
knees, and you walk to the door, you're down on your knees, you open the door, right? And then you stand up to go through, and then you go down on your knees again to close it.
Yes.
It's an astonishing rigmarole and ritual, but everything is deliberate. There's a lot of precision to everything. Yeah,
it was
and
deliberate.
A lot of meaning to many little things. This is a culture, that particular time and era. I don't know how much of it's still today, but where deliberation and meaning for small things is a huge deal. All right. So to give you an example, I want to hear more about her in a moment, but I want to just put this into context.
Okay.
When he comes back from his exercise, right? His workout with the sword.
Yes.
He takes his sword off. Now, there's a particular way in which you do that, and you see him. He has it in his hands, and he kind of turns towards the little table there, and he sort of, there's a little pause to him, like oh. And the reason is that now, you might not notice it because it's without understanding what's behind it, it's not all that meaningful. But it is, because what typically would be there would be the sword stand that you put the sword on, right?
Okay.
Now, almost every American house that I've seen, they put it with it like a smile. They put the sword like a smile, which is opposite way of doing it, because that gets the sword is now resting on its edge, which is not very ideal for the edge over long periods of time. So in a Japanese home, they would never do that. They would put it curved downward with the blade up, in other words, right? So he was looking for that stand to put it on. Furthermore, if you look later on, when the Lord is talking to his wife, you see this behind him, right? The sword with the sword on it. And you'll notice that the handle is facing on the left-hand side. And you say, well, surely, unless you're left-handed, that's not the way to put it. But they're doing this deliberately, precisely because most of you are not left-handed, because this is the awkward way to grab it. In other words, it's not set up, it's set up for more peaceful. If you were expecting hostilities, then you'd put it the other way around. So it's a signal to your guests as well on how friendly you are. There's a great scene in a movie where the hero, he's cleaning up everything, and he goes to an official who's kind of corrupt. And, the officials are typically samurai, and the official has the sand. Now, they don't really use it. They're not practicing samurai. It's more, just for show. But anyway, so, and the sword is behind with the sword to the left. So at some point, negotiations broke down and things aren't so friendly anymore. And the official turns around behind him, and he flips the sword around. He turns it the other way. So, well, now, no more friendliness anymore. Anyway, so there's actually more. I was telling somebody else this. I forgot to add the rest of the story. So, that's how it would be utilized. So the negotiations going on, and it really gets out of hand. And so the official turns around to now grab the sword, but our hero has a whip, and he just lashes the little tip of the whip and curls it around the middle of the sword, and he just gives it that little flick, and here comes the sword to the hero. It's brilliant. Anyway, so I'm trying to say that every little thing that they do has meaning to it. It's astonishing the amount of deliberation involved, and her precision and deliberation is quite a feat of self-awareness and self-control, self-discipline.
I found if there were one word that I would describe her character with. It would be exquisite. And
Exactly. It is exquisite. Precisely, Sher. Precisely.
it really
Absolutely.
was. Now,
Now,
my thought about her was how much I would like to be that way, that deliberate, that intentional,
yes,
that purposeful in
yes,
everything.
yes, yes,
So that's something to strive for. Now, of course, the
absolutely.
culture and the
Absolutely.
times are 100% different, but it doesn't make a difference.
No, exactly.
If I set that as my intent to be that deliberate in movement, and then I go back to Erica's exercise in paying attention deliberately to all of her movements where she was talking about walking,
Yes,
I could still do that. It doesn't
yeah,
mean that, I'm not finished, of course, by any means.
yeah.
But to be that exquisite and deliberate in my speech, every day she greeted him with something different,
Yes,
which he
yes,
would return.
yes,
But it
yes,
was always with a very careful and intentional positivity. So she
yeah,
had an unrelenting positivity about her, and she
yes,
wouldn't argue with him. It-
yes,
he would give his explanation, knowing that he was trying to do right by his wife, still feeling very humbled. He carried some shame. He was
yes,
carrying shame, but she did not see him through
yes,
eyes of shame.
yes, exactly. Or at least not eventually. Initially, a little bit, yes, right? So
Yeah.
she came to, this is the other thing that I really enjoy about the movie. It shows people undergoing real change.
Yes.
She really changed, right? So,
Yes.
her attitude and her mindset, that deliberateness, it is built on a foundation of exquisiteness, yes,
Yeah.
but also there's an intent, and this is an intent that's very difficult for some Westerners to understand. It's the intent of service,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
She is enjoying and enthralled by this conception of service. So she doesn't feel,
Yes.
when she makes the tea for him, she would be horrified and a little bit offended and upset if he were to make his own tea instead of her, right?
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
this is my joy. This is what I enjoy doing, is serving you. Don't dare take that away from me. So this is an extremely powerful way of being that not many understand, the true joys of capital S service. Yeah, and you see it in
That's
that.
true.
It's not subjugation, it is service.
No.
And we see this in this fact that there is not subjugation with the daimyo's wife, the Lord's wife,
Right.
right? Well, she was a really potent character. As much as Tayo was, yes, exquisite, the wife had gone one step more. She'd moved into new nobility territory, because clearly
Yes.
in the relationship between the Lord and his wife, she was the one that was more mature, more sober, and more intelligent. Yes?
Yeah.
It didn't
Yeah.
change her service to him. However, he was able to say, she could directly say to him, "Oh, you got angry again." Now, in that milieu, that culture, this is like an almost unheard of impossibility, right? But it
Yes.
was also his openness. I mean, he's like ridiculously progressive, even though by today's standards, he's very conservative, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the era. So her sophistication, her new nobility is part of that, the way in which she's applying capital diplomacy, and had raised it to the level of being able to be direct with him like that, in a very gentle, kind way. That was exquisite. There are three characters that are really exquisite. Beside, Ihe has also got his own exquisiteness, but
Yes.
three females,
Yes.
three women. The
I
third
think
one
that was
for
in.
me, the third one who's also an exquisite character, is the prostitute.
Oh, I loved her.
She was awesome, right?
I
She was awesome, right? Absolutely exquisite character.
yes, she
Somebody
was.
who is very sophisticated, very aware, but also she hasn't quite mastered that emotional control yet, right?
No, no.
So that's why she's because she's aware of this, and she's a bit heart sore because she knows she's more, but likely circumstance and situation was there. But she's learning still, right? But
Yeah.
when the part that really, two scenes for me really show her moreness and the magic of herness, right? Well, three actually. the scene where she goes to the wife, right? And she
Right.
reaches out and she gives her a little thing for the sandal. You see the gentleness, the care, and you see her there are appreciation.
Uh-huh.
That's what she's doing. She's not being kind, she's being appreciative.
Yes.
That's what she's appreciating the magic of Tayo. The other part that I really liked that showed her was she was just sitting there, her head a little thing, and she was just in her own bubble. She was completely content with the world, right?
Yeah.
Without being happy and cheerful, or she wasn't miserable either, right? She
No,
was just that
just
contentment, right?
present.
And she was a piece of being. She was exemplifying piece of being. And also
Yeah.
you see her independence of being, which she doesn't know fully. She hasn't got all the tools yet of how to deal with it, right? She's got issues
Right.
still that she's working on. But she is working on it. And Ihe helped her tremendously to work on that, right? The other scene which really shows her is when she runs up the stairs. The ladder, right? It's not stairs,
Okay.
ladder, right? So
Okay.
she goes up that ladder to the loft there with such an energetic alacrity that shows. I mean, she's not a young girl anymore, right? But
No,
not many
no.
young girls can go up ladders like that, right? This was
Right.
something that is. This is something that's beyond the character. This goes to the actress, and that's a level of energizedness that you can't just act, right? This is
Right.
something inherent. Very powerful. This is something that really is illustrative of a very, very different type of a person. Somebody who has so much energy, but they don't always know what to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So her
Okay.
anger and the annoyance, and part of it is because of, and also her being a prostitute is likely for the same reason: too much energy, not knowing what to do with it. Or
Yeah.
at least that's one of the reasons. It may be, we don't know her backstory. It may be she was, forced into it. A lot of them, they get sold into it. They paying off debts because of it. There's a very complex social structure with the with the yakuza, the criminal underground, and
Yes.
how prostitution. I mean, it's a whole big rigmarole, and a lot of the girls get into trouble for whatever reason, or they're paying off family debts or whatever.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a big thing. But nonetheless, likely part of it is her. I would assume that at least for people like that, not this character. Let me just generalize. When
Uh-huh.
people have that kind of excess energy, they get into trouble because they don't know what to do with it, right? So it manifests inappropriately, and this is it. So they don't know how to channel it appropriately. So you can see with Ihe, she doesn't have that same physicalness, but there is a deeper spiritual energy to her, right? Same with the daimyo's wife. That you can see that they have power. It doesn't manifest as physical energy, but it's
Right.
power. So
Right.
they all have power, in other words. Yeah. And that's the difference. Yeah. So keep in mind the subtitle of Way of Impeccability. It's a toolbox for deliberate living. And when you see this in this context of Tayo and her deliberateness and all of them, right, you start to see, wow, this is a different way of living. Now, that deliberateness, it's very proscribed, yes, but that we don't have to have it proscribed. We can just do that whether it's free. And also, we can have it be proscribed, but proscribed by two things: appropriateness and attunement. This changes everything, right, Sher?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. There
So
was.
she's culturally proscribed, in the way that she does, like when she was writing, the way she would fold the book and put it away and all that. Everything has got its, making tea, everything. But we can have a different prescription that is appropriateness and attunement. And be
When
deliberate.
she received the gift that he brought that
Yeah.
he brought back to her after his first visit with the Lord, um, and the scene where it was just showing her with her hands in her lap, and she was just looking and
Yes,
appreciating the
exactly.
magnitude of the gift in front of her,
Exactly.
which I'm assuming was just very probably refined cloth.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Yeah.
um,
Yes.
well, first off, his astonishment at her skills of stitching him a new kimono,
Yes.
to go meet this Lord.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that was an amazing testament to her skill and her
And
quiet
also,
strength.
she anticipated,
Yeah,
that.
yeah. She figured, well, he's going to need this, and but I mean, for her to do that, to anticipate, but then
She's looking
her,
out for him completely and utterly, in other words.
yeah. But I
Service.
saw so much in that one scene. There was where she was just appreciating a gift. There was such a quiet humility there. There was appreciation. It went deeper into gratitude, and then even beyond
Exactly.
that.
And there's another very profound conception that is in our dictionaries of power, and that is absolutely a glue that binds it all together. Right. So from a new nobility point of view, yes, all those conceptions that you mentioned, those absolute fundamentals, including, appreciation
Joy,
and joy, but also respect.
respect. There
Yeah.
it was, right there. There was,
Respect is huge, right? Everything, the way she receives that, it's respect. The prostitute, when she was giving the gift, it's not only appreciation, but it's respecting the
it's
exquisite.
respect. He
And the way
even,
she received the gift, respect. Yes.
well, and even she even spoke her mind
Exactly.
to the messenger. She spoke her mind
Exactly.
to the messenger, where
Exactly.
she normally, even
Yeah.
nowadays, a woman
Right.
coming to the aid of her spouse, her husband, whatever, is still unheard of. Men are
Exactly.
supposed to be able
Right.
to
But
argue their own battles.
she was very close, bordering on being rude, which
Yes,
is now in that culture, this is the equivalent of, you going into the office and shutting
shame.
your head off or something, right? I mean, this is
Uh-huh.
extreme behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
it is, and the fact that she didn't have any obvious anger or emotionality,
No,
it actually is an indication of the depth of the passion and deep emotional connectivity that she felt. She wasn't emotional, but
right,
passionate. There's a
right,
very big difference, right? So
right.
when EA says, let's not be rude, he's being cautious here because he doesn't know how far. And she says, yes, and she says, her intent is not to be rude. Her intent is to communicate the importance of this passion. It is
Yes,
necessary for her to communicate it and to push the boundary a little bit to make the recipients aware of exactly how profound and important and deep this is, and her respect for what he's done, for his
yes.
reasons, not the actions. So her change here, her awareness, she's come to awareness because of
It
his
showed her change
interaction.
at that point.
Right, right. But now let's rewind the movie, right? He could have bought the food and given it to them and gone to his room.
Right.
Why did he not do that? Talk
I
about
guess I,
discernment now. Talk about this,
okay.
right? So he is discerning the entirety of the situation. Yeah. So he's understanding, he's looking at it. You got a bunch of travelers, don't
Yeah.
necessarily know each other. They coop together. They hard up. They don't have anything. They scrounging. They're desperate essentially. This is going to lead to emotional tension
Yes.
and potential friction. So if he gives the food because that's already there, right, without some sort of a mechanism to shift it, right, which is him, that could now just people be squabbling over the food and, old grievances come out and you fill your belly and that's it. He could not allow the continuity of that potentiality. Not that it was negative, but it wasn't particularly positive either, right?
Right.
So
Right.
in order to prevent this for the longer, for the next few days, to make sure that things are going to be pleasant, because look, he's got to live with it too, because remember, those walls are paper.
Yes. Yes.
Literally, paper walls. It's
Yeah.
astonishing, right? So he's now making every effort to apply anticipatory capital D diplomacy, which is why he made an effort with his demeanor and mood. He cued the change. He made
Yes,
space
he
for it
did.
and he cued that mood. He cued for it to become positive and joyful, and it transformed everything, right? So his wife, when she saw that, hey, he wasn't there hanging out because he was trying to make friends and be popular, and like some people do in
Right.
authority, they tried to be the common guy's buddy. He was
Right.
never that, right? He just treated them with respect and decency. Yes. So
Yes.
that his entire interaction there is one of exquisiteness. Also, there's a real interesting little small point when he does when the food arrives. He says, everyone, come and help me. Yes.
Yes.
Nobody moves.
I wonder
Nobody
why
helps him. The people who brought it, they bring it in. Nobody gets up to come and go outside to help bring the food in. Right? But he just
Right.
absolutely applies de-emphasis to this.
Okay.
It's so de-emphasized by him that you don't even notice that nobody actually gets up and comes and helps.
I didn't. That is amazing. I did not see that.
This is a movie of ridiculous subtlety. Ridiculous subtlety. Yeah. It
That
is
is
ridiculously subtle because, if he were to have repeated that, he's now going to be drawing attention to that, right? And he's
Yes.
asking something from them. He can't insist on it. He can't demand. He could demand because he's a samurai. Keep in mind, just a little bit of cultural context. Samurais, if you touched the physical person of a samurai, they were legally entitled to kill you if they chose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that part I do know.
the typical samurai is, it's a world apart from this guy. They
Right.
okay, they didn't all go to that extreme. I as far as I understand, that wasn't very often enacted, but it did give you that option, essentially, right? So you
Right.
basically had the power of life and death. If he said do something, they called him master. They would technically not really have to obey him because he's a master, the samurai, so he's not in the hierarchy, whereas everybody in that fief, that's what they call it,
Right.
of the daimyo, you a subject of the lord. And if a samurai comes along, if he's employed by the lord, well, you technically under his authority. Very real. So if he tells you to do something, you got to do it, right? You're all employed by the lord in one way or another. You're all his subjects, right? Not necessarily.
Right.
So, but since he's a Ronin, he doesn't technically have that. But he could insist on it if he really wanted to, because nobody's going to challenge him. He's walking around with two swords.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It
too
was
fascinating.
interesting.
So my point is, the subtlety of where he says, everyone, come and help. He's asking, but he doesn't say, will you please come and help? So it's an ask, but come and help. And nobody reacts to it. He doesn't draw any attention to it. He just moves things along. Very powerful.
His level of service, or his passion for service, was also very deep, which for
Exactly.
a samurai or a Ronin was very rare.
Exactly.
His passion wasn't. I really appreciated how he was different as far as warriors go, because he used the approach of, well, there was discernment. He used the approach of for example, his duels, whenever he was doing the practice or showing them, demonstrating, his skills. It was as though, like they said, he had already had the intent that he was not going to lose, but just that he was able to, through his own appreciation and passion, it just showed through. His passion for service, his passion for life, his respect for humanity. And then there was only one time he lost his temper. Only one time where he lost control of his emotions. And people died.
And
that was very
journey.
disturbing to him.
He has his own journey, much like the daimyo, to overcome anger. Because he does have it in him, despite him being such a gentle and tranquil and kind person. He also has that when he does lose, like he says to them. But in that instance, he didn't actually lose his, where they gang up on him and they tried to, beat him up or I don't know what they wanted to do to him, kill him or whatever. But at least, in that, he didn't actually lose his temper. But he was using the story of him losing his temper to try and warn them off. It was part of his capital diplomacy.
Yes. Yes.
So also, if one's a little bit aware of the sword fighting aspects, first of all, when he stops the duel, he uses Aikido techniques, which is very, and it's not part of typical swordsmanship. Like if you're going to study Kendo, you don't study where, where he steps aside and he grabs the sword handle between the hands of the swordsman, and he kind of
Right.
jerks him forward, and then he flips him over, right? This is
Right.
a non-violent mechanism of
Right.
disarming swordsman. So he's showing that he's trying to, because he could have just gone in there and taken his sword out and given them a cut or two and stopped the fight that way. But he did it non-violently. And when the guys from the dojo, which that's another whole cultural thing, the dojos they get, it's this whole competitive thing, and a lot of them were really caught up in self-importance. They still have this today, and it's
Yes,
just
they
all
do.
at the BS, and then you get the genuine ones. So it's fascinating. It's much like coaching. Yeah, it's the same kind of a logic. You get the genuine ones, you get the BS ones. But same thing. He starts off where he disarms some of them, like when the guy aggressively approaches him, where he just takes his sword and with the handle, he just pops it out of the scabbard a little bit, and he pops the guy in the stomach with it. It's very subtle, very quick, but he's using minimum violence, right? So when you look at him as a warrior, he is saying, I want a third option between winning and losing in his duels. In
Yes,
other
I
words,
want
he
to use
didn't go for the
strategy.
black-white options. He found the color option.
Okay, I like that. I like that point.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do.
So
I
he
really
went
do.
beyond the only two win or lose. He said, no, I had a different way of doing this. He didn't win or lose, right, really. Technically, if he renounces, it's kind of a loss, but not really, because you're deliberately doing it. So it's genius. He's going outside of the system. Now, yes, he did this because he had those skills, obviously, even though he started off as an accountant. But he wanted something else. Accounting wasn't for him. He was aware of that. So this is
Yeah.
a path that just something for him that he could do. It's not necessarily the most ideal. Hopefully he will, as a swords master, he would become what a sensei is, which is a teacher. And he wouldn't
Yes.
just teach sword, he would teach character. That would
Right.
be one's assumption. In the dojo, that would be the role that he's going to fill. I mean, Gon already, he automatically just directly has gotten this relationship where he wants to learn about character from, he calls him Sir Masawa, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see that relationship is going to be more focused on character than, if he's coming for the sword lessons, obviously, because he's the sword master, Gon is going to become a student. It's going to be about character, not sword so much, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out in many ways too, though. I mean, there was a lot of ways that that his wife would actually disarm him. He would come in with feeling
Yeah.
shame and some humility,
Yeah.
over like whatever had transpired. But
Yeah.
she
Well,
was
he'd
able
given
to,
his word to not deal for money.
yes,
So, okay, deals in that particular fief were illegal, but not necessarily everywhere else. Yes.
right,
Because the same thing, like when he went to the dojos and he challenged the master of the dojo to a duel.
right,
That's actually culturally acceptable. Those are different duels, and those are also duels with wooden swords, boken, or maybe
right,
kendo swords. Right. It's not a live duel. So I imagine in the dojo where he did for the money, they would also use boken, but it wasn't about the duels where the guys were outside with the live swords. That's
right.
dueling for the intent of killing each other. That's what's illegal. The
Yes,
dueling for money is not necessarily illegal. It's disreputable. It's dishonorable. Right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's just a cultural thing. It's like a woman selling her body. It's the same sort of a logic to it.
yeah.
Why, I don't know, but samurai is supposed to be better than that. You see, so. And that's how a lot of the
Well,
Ronin made their money, is through duels, and it gave them this very negative reputation as a result. But they did it because they had no choice, really. So it was a status hierarchy thing for the employed samurai to be superior to the Ronin. So yeah, there's a lot of
oh my.
weirdness to it. Yeah,
I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole movie, but I
it's good.
thought
Yeah,
there was one thing, and I thought, well, I can set an intent to be deliberate, mindful, and
yeah,
practice paying attention to every movement I make. Do I need to do this? Is this deliberate? Is this something that wow, hold on a second. No, I have to unplug here for just a moment. Okay. Okay, I'm back.
Very cool. It sounded like paper or something being.
Nope. Yeah, it was. I had to smash a bug on the floor. I was like, nope, we're not going to let that one go. It's a roach, so no, it has to go. One roach can lay 1,000 eggs or something like that. So no, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, and keep in mind, if you do get that powder, the diatomaceous earth, that it takes a while for it to work.
Yeah. Well, I just.
And they can still pass the barrier, but over time it will wear them out.
Yeah. No, that's just one of those things, and it's really strange because that must be that it's getting colder outside, because I'm starting to see them in rooms that I've never seen them before. So the only thing I could think of that, and then my neighbors have been like shifting their belongings, and when they move things around, of course, it's going to disturb the nests and the roaches. So, yeah, but it's okay. It's all right. I took care of it.
Yeah. So by the way, on the ending, I feel the ending was just, think of it in reverse, kind of reverse engineer. You, the director, and you need to end this exquisite, beautiful movie. How do you end it and leave it on a high note, on an inspirational, positive note? If you end it and the Lord comes and he says, "Look, yeah, I'm glad I found you. Come and work," it becomes more mundane. No.
Oh yeah, that it's just expected. I like the idea that it left a little bit of mystery at the end.
Right. So, and also, you saying either way it goes, you don't know for sure, but it doesn't matter, and that's a big point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had come to that same conclusion, that
it doesn't matter.
They weren't. If they were going to work for the Lord, it wasn't because they were desperate or out of necessity. Yeah. And that's
they would do it because it was supposed to be.
Even if you are desperate, don't do it out of desperation.
Yeah. Now, interesting question. This is just an observation to me. Why are those houses that they were all stay in, all the travelers? Are there houses like that dotted throughout the countryside then?
Inns. Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's an inn. Yeah, absolutely.
But nobody owned it. Nobody managed it. It was just there.
Oh, no, that's very interesting. Yes, there absolutely would be. And in this case, the management of the inn is not visible, which is somewhat interesting. No, absolutely, they have a management to them. Yeah, it's like any inn, like a business, like holiday inn. Yeah, like inns in medieval times that were all over the show. So yeah. And this one was, they typically would have, obviously they'd serve meals, and have communal dining areas, and usually those inns would also have a gambling room.
Oh, well, see, this one seemed to be very,
and it's very, where they basically roll dice and in a cup, and you turn it over, and it's a very kind of a stylized, ritualized thing. But very interesting. So
well, and I guess they made their own food, or I don't know. It was interesting because she was the one who was preparing his dinner, his tea, etc. But so everybody else was kind of
unusual of the circumstance with the rain. Typically people would stay there, would be people who could afford to stay there. But now, because of the river being so swollen and the incessant rain, you had people who wouldn't normally stay there staying there. So they were just using it kind of as a shelter, which I think, at that point, the innkeeper had sort of given up and said, "Well, you're on your own, I'm not."
But there was some benevolence there then, there was benevolence.
Well, they didn't have much of an option because, what are you going to do? Yeah.
Right. I
So
did
that,
enjoy their storytelling though through music. I thought
yeah,
that was unique.
yeah, yeah. It is a part of the story that is somewhat unusual because, from other movies, a lot of those innkeepers are, they're not very nice people, and they would have just said, well, toughies, you're in the rain, that's hard luck for you, no money,
Yeah,
no stay. So
yeah,
in this case, I guess they didn't focus much on it because it wouldn't make for the story otherwise.
uh-huh.
And it would require a long, elaborate setup, which would take a lot of movie time to show how it came about. So we just accept this is what it is, and that's how it's come about. So
Yeah.
the
Wow.
premise, in other words, an established premise. It's very interesting.
Now it's interesting if you tie that into something that he was talking about. He left a part of his life out until the end, where, of course, it was discovered that he was dueling for money, which, his wife knew, except for
Yeah,
nobody understood why he was dueling for money.
yeah,
So it's interesting though, because he didn't use, and neither did she, that I once did, or I used to, like I did. And in other words, they were talking about himself in the past, but he never said I.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
so I don't know why I just thought about that, because I just read about what we were talking about first on the call about my old self instead
That's
of
exactly using
I would
I.
have.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I was grateful that you shared the movie. It was quite an experience. It was a
Oh,
treat,
good. Oh, good. Yes, it's
to be able to see
absolutely a way of
something.
impeccability and a new nobility movie also. Yeah.
Yeah. I really, I'm not sure what I enjoyed most about it, other than seeing an example in action. A lot of the conceptions of things that I'm not going to say that I want to aspire to be, because a lot of them I already have, just
Exactly.
in
Exactly.
unrefined ways. So,
Exactly. You
and
already have it. Yes.
yeah, and there's we each have our own style. Bina, very much. I could see Bina and Erica,
Yeah.
Bina especially. I could see Bina especially being oh, the names are really difficult for me. I could see Bina being his wife.
Yes.
Just her movements, her
Yeah.
deliberateness of being. I
Yeah.
could see that, where
Albina is
she's
very much in a culture that still has many of those elements involved. Now, they don't quite fully have it as much as that because, they the exquisiteness of the Japanese is something that is, in a universal context, it's quite exceptional. How they
right.
everything and took it to the end, kind of. Yeah, I mean they
Yeah.
went overboard with a lot of things too, of course, but nonetheless, this is something that is uncommon in the world in general.
Has
It's
there
part of the culture in Venus world. Yeah.
I am,
So,
I'd be fascinated to see how much of the old culture or the old ways are still left,
yeah,
as far as the Japanese culture goes, for women, or even Chinese. Um,
yeah.
I would suspect
Yeah.
that there's not much.
Yes. On the other hand, a lot more than some suspect as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that culture of the fief, right? Where
Uh-huh.
those two retainers, the old guys, Muleface and Scarecrow, right? I mean, they're very senior. Him talking like that to them, it's like, this is he gets away with it because they care for him and they respect him and they like him. Otherwise, no way. Even though he's the Lord, he would. Yes, he could still do it, but it wouldn't have the same mood to it, right? So there's a
Right.
very, very fine nuance to this, where he can sort of push it, but because they truly like him and respect him, even though he's rude to them, all right? He can get
Right.
away with it. It's quite fascinating, and it's almost like you see Gone. They also take it as a sign of his affection in a peculiar way, right? Because he doesn't know
Right.
otherwise how to express it. So there's a load of nuance to that. But in general, you could be a dictator, and those retainers are technically employees, and they could leave your service, right?
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So yes, they might be sworn and have all this, but look at yeah, he left the service. I mean, yeah, the Lord said, "Oh, you ran away. All right, technically he might not have severed his contract in the most, best ways, but still, you could leave the service." And so, if you abuse your thing too much, and you certainly had lords who were very dictatorial, they would also backfire on you. So,
Yeah.
so the system tries to build in this underlying respect. Now, the whole samurai culture has much to it as a culture in theory. In application was a different thing entirely, right? So, obviously people be amends, they take this, and, a lot of those samurai were just flat out plain bullies, and the same with the daimyos, and, much like any feudal system in Europe,
Yeah.
the same system. But the ideal of it, right, like Bushido, which is the underlying philosophy behind the samurai, this
Right.
has become a big part of the culture, where you don't technically have a samurai class anymore, but the pursuit of that samurai logic of Bushido, of honor and respect, this has very much become a part of um, um, deeper into Japanese culture. Also, in terms of obedience and service. And that's why, Japanese companies get such ridiculously high productivity. So
Okay.
because of that culture that's still there to a large extent. Yeah. So,
Interesting.
your modern corporation, say Toyota or Honda or whatever, these are no different to a fiefdom. The exact same organization, same structure, same culture, same everything. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Which is why the Japanese corporations are so ridiculously successful. Yeah,
Now,
quite fascinating. Because also, you in there in service. It's not that, yes, obedience is a big part of it, but like the wife, Tayo, obedience is a big part of it, but it's obedience out of service, which is a very different thing. Yeah,
it is. It's not obedience out of fear. It's
exactly.
obedience out of a passion.
Exactly. And you're doing it because you feel this is the right thing to do. So, Japanese employees are ridiculously productive and motivated because they feel they are part of a bigger organization. It's their company. Yeah. Like the fief, it's our fief. You see those retainers, it's their fief. Yes, he's the Lord, but they feel possessive about the fief, and what's going on in it. Yeah, that's why they took such an interest in the new swords master. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot more sense too, then. Because I was trying to figure out how did he reduced their anger, but through a strategy.
Yes.
It's not that he won them over. Now, some people could say, oh, well, he, smoothed them over, manipulated them. No, there was a strategy that he was employing the entire time, but I was trying to figure out what that strategy
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And honestly, it wasn't coming to me other than just being genuine and kind, showing his humility. He was using his intelligence. He was
Exactly.
very smart, very shrewd
Exactly.
man.
He was using capital diplomacy
Okay.
and
And
strategy.
that is what can help diffuse anger,
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Again, it's when you look at his sword fighting, you see this. Yes, that he
Yes.
doesn't. He never actually. You don't really see him attacking. He's always responding, and especially in right. And not only that, but he uses deflection. And he takes the force of the blow, like when he actually does when he grabs this guy's sword. He does it a couple of times, right? He steps
Okay.
out of the way. He uses the energy and momentum of the individual, their thrust, which is trying to kill him or cut him, right? And he
Okay.
moves out of the way, and then he extends that a little bit to get them off balance, and then he redirects it. And through the
Okay.
redirection, he nullifies them. It is the
So by
underlying
not
principle of
attacking,
leader.
and responding, he was
Yeah, but
strategically
but but
using
but
choice.
but he does more though, right? He takes
Mm-hmm.
the attack, and he at first extends it a little bit to pull the person off balance. Once they're off balance, he then redirects it, and through, yes, he turns the arms and the joints a little bit, but it uses a little bit of strategic pressure in order to take the person who's now off balance and get them completely off balance. right?
Okay.
Which, when they're totally off balance, now the anger dissipates because they're unable to be angry.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a very profound strategy involved. Yeah. So he doesn't meet the anger head on. Yeah. He basically like almost steps back a little bit, which extends that anger, and then he redirects it, and then he completely redirects it to get them completely off balance, and now it falls apart because it can't be used anymore. Yeah, so it's extreme sophistication of managing the energy, and he does this. The capital E diplomacy is nothing is that direct head-onness, right? You don't see
Yes.
stick his sword up and clash and clang, 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 clang.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
No, not like the old knights used to do.
exactly.
There was no diplomacy really there. It was just fight,
Correct,
attack.
right. It is brute force, right? Exactly.
Yes.
That's subjugation. You see, whereas
Right.
when you do that, and yes, you may win the fight, but now it's just you slightly stronger. Whereas when he won the fight with this guys, it was very clear that he was ridiculously more skillful, and they were made aware of their lack of skill.
Oh, they were. I do
Not just
remember
the lack.
that.
If I beat you and yes we win, maybe I could have used this move. I could have moved that move. This is typically when you in a battle where it's like and you come out. Okay, yes, it was a little better, a little quicker, but you still have this idea that you were in the game. He made it very clear to the dojo guys who were trying to attack him. You're not in my class. You're not in my field. This is not a game that we can play. We're not in the same league here. Right now, you can do the same thing with anger, which he did with the prostitute. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You
Now
can confront her because now you're in a battle, and that's no good. In a battle,
right.
everybody loses in a battle.
Yes.
So he used this to say, let's not play this game at all. So he shifted the game.
He did. And there was
shift the game.
an interesting moment that I noticed, and I don't know if it was it was important to me when he was talking to the Lord, and when he first came to him, and I'm just going to call him the Lord because I don't remember exactly.
Fine. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So he was, the word for Lord is daimyo, but it means Lord. Yeah.
Daimyo. Okay. So Lord, when he was first presenting himself to him, and he told him to relax, and after just a few moments of discourse, of conversation, he heard birds outside. And at that moment, I just thought to myself, wow, he's really aware, very attuned. But he heard the birds outside, the Lord did. And he's like, I don't want to talk in here. Let's go outside. Let's go be where I am comfortable. And so they did. A less formal atmosphere. The gardens, by the way, the scenery in that movie was just phenomenal.
It's such a beautiful movie visually.
But I just thought it was really interesting. Why would they make that such a deliberate point to show that the level of this master's attunement?
Exactly.
To show why was that such a, what a complicated character, because he had a temper. We know this.
Shows his character because he wanted to be out in these beautiful gardens, which means that, yes, a lot of those, the castle essentially, would have beautiful gardens, but they would have it for form, only because you're supposed to. He had it because he enjoyed it.
He enjoyed it. That's where that was his element, was being outside. And it's like his entire demeanor changed as soon as he went outside.
Exactly.
He relaxed. He was more himself. He felt connected at that point, able to speak freely instead of confined within the walls, where every time you saw him inside his house, he was angry and he was, like tense. But then when you see him outside, all of a sudden he became this soft person, but not too soft. He just became curious and attuned. And I thought,
exactly, more of a child. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
He is psychologically, he's somewhat a child in an adult position, and you see it with his wife, right? The wife is the adult.
Yes. Oh, she definitely was. She definitely was. I liked her approach.
Oh, she was awesome. Yeah.
I
All the
really
women
liked her
were awesome.
approach.
Well, not all of
Well,
them were awesome, but yeah, were the main ones. Yeah.
yeah, the main ones were. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, like I said, I resonated with all three of them. I could
Yeah.
see myself in parts of all three of them. Um, I was particularly interested in watching um, the interaction, though, how this Lord would, he wanted to control, but at the same time, he also wanted to use, I don't know if discernment was the right word. No, it's not that. Um, he tried to employ strategy and it just
Yes.
wasn't working for him.
Yeah.
It was not working for him. It was as though he was kind of like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah. 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 So the analogy of the garden and the castle. In the
Yes.
castle represents also the cultural milieu that he's in, which is confining and restricting. Oh, tradition again, right? And he's aware of it.
Yes.
So when
Yes.
he's outside, though, he can have that freedom. So it's a greater representation of him being in a position which is difficult, considering that he realizes there's a lot of artificiality. Because as much as that exquisiteness has a real value to it, and we can appreciate it in small doses,
Uh-huh.
in its entirety, it can also be very tiresome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, he
that
was
goes
talking
in and out
about,
through the door that way. That's going to get old in a hurry if you got to go in and out a lot.
yes. Well, he was also talking about his diet too. That was an interesting scene.
That's
The
very
whole
modern.
thing about his diet, about complaining about that he
Yeah,
can't eat this fish, he can't eat that, he
right,
can't eat this. He's
right,
like, here I am, like an old man, confined to
yeah,
drinking this cold soup.
right, right,
Um,
right.
he was
Yeah.
just so casual about it. Like, I
And the
really don't like this
implication,
diet.
exactly, when we apply some discernment there, we say, wow, but he's the Lord. How come he doesn't just insist on eating whatever he eats?
Who was it that was telling him he had to watch his diet?
His retainers, probably Muleface and Scarecrow, were part of the gang that was this, and probably
Okay.
the wife also. But that's the point in those situations. Yes, when they run the way they were designed to, there's a balance. You
Yeah.
don't have total power. Like for instance, look, he when he said about, well, we can dispense with the practice, right?
Yes.
When the
Yes.
two old guys bring it up, and they just sort of kind of ignore him, right?
Yeah, they very much ignored him. They just
Yeah,
said, sorry,
but
we're gonna go the way.
right, but Ehe applied capital D diplomacy there, right? Because he says, I forget exactly what he said, but something like, I'm at your service or whenever you're
Yeah.
ready.
Yep. He's
So
like, I can
he,
meet with you. Okay.
right, exactly. But he doesn't agree with the Lord that we can dispense with it. He doesn't side with the Lord, but he doesn't oppose the Lord either. But he provides, he sees the way this is going. Yeah.
Yes.
And he sees that it could result in a battle between the Lord and the two retainers. By him saying that, he sort of removes the option for the Lord. The Lord's not just going to be, flogging a dead horse, essentially, right? So the
Right.
Lord sort of, we grumbles a little bit, okay, and he goes along with it because he realizes that he's been, the situation is out of his hands now, right? He can make a
Right.
fuss if he really wants to, but it's, again, masterful subtlety, and it's EA's capital D diplomacy. He sees what's going on and he just does that. He didn't need to say anything, right? He
Right.
volunteers that he's amenable. It's fascinating. Subtlety, subtlety, subtlety. What an exquisite movie.
Why? So the only point that I don't know why I was confused about this, but when he's dueling, when he's doing that practice fight with the Lord, and he winds up in the pond by accident,
Uh-huh.
it was the heat of the moment.
Yeah,
He said, I used a little bit more force than I ought to have.
yeah.
He apologized. I mean, just tripping over himself, apology.
Exactly.
And that irritated, that made the
Yes,
Lord
yes.
furious. Was he furious because the man showed a weakness in his character for apologizing so much?
No, he explained it to the wife. He said that he felt he was being pitied.
Okay.
And, the excessive apology makes him feel like he's being pitied, and nobody likes to be pitied for their lack of skill. So It was just, it was excessive humility. It is inappropriate humility.
Okay, that I knew
Yeah.
that the inappropriate part, but I was just trying to figure out, it's like, well, so
Yeah.
I didn't, because I
Yeah.
didn't quite
So,
understand
because
why
EA
he
is
was
not
saying he felt
apologizing,
pitied.
right, right, because EA is not apologizing for his, yeah, okay, I got caught up in the moment. If it said, well, you said no reserve, and he could laugh about it, for instance, that would have been the appropriate thing. We got carried away, and, you said no reserve, and I applied no reserve. In other words, the fact that the Lord ended up in the pond was actually a measure of respect for the Lord, because the Lord said no reserve, right? So
Okay.
really, what he would ideally, he could have just reached out his hand with a big grin and say,
Yeah.
good fight, right? That's it. End
Yeah.
of story. No more needed to say, good fight. End of story. I gave you my best. You asked for it. I gave you my best. I gave you my best as a measure of respect. And this the Lord would have been thrilled with, right? But
Okay.
so when he's apologizing, he's actually apologizing for the Lord's lack of skills.
Okay. All
And
right. Now I get it.
it's kind
Yeah.
of not cool in a way. He's feeling bad on behalf of the Lord. There's no need to be
Right.
bad at all. So it's kind of a pity in a way. And Ehe also comes to awareness and realizes that
Okay.
he also grows and learns. The anger and Ehe also grows and learns from this. So both learn. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
They absolutely did.
You
But
know,
I do like his,
yeah.
I
When he
do like
comes
his
back,
resolve at the end
yeah,
when he just said, I made a mistake and whatever happens, happens. And I loved that part, because he did say it was a mistake. And it's like,
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
you did, but guess what? I love the approach of
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
But he also says, in this case, I feel the Lord is different.
Yes.
Yeah. So because when he comes back and he says, Tayo, I think that's how we would say it, Tayo. Yeah.
Okay.
She says something very interesting. She says, oh, it's already happened. Just one short little sentence. She says, it's already happened. She's commenting on what does she mean by it's? She means the incident of where things sort of, happen, where this kind of a situation, some sort of a disturbance of a friction, right? So
Yeah.
she's, but she says it in a way which implies it's positive because it's out of the way now. Already happened.
Yeah, but I wonder though what it was, because twice it was mentioned, maybe it was 3 times, as to why he didn't get along with his former employers. There was something to that.
Yeah,
And
well,
I didn't know if it was character, if it was temper.
Yeah, well, because if the imagine with a typical lord who's stuck up, who's a BMN, whose status and image is all important, right?
Right.
They would have been furious because they ended up in the water and looked well, I'm the less skillful swordsman, right? For them, they wouldn't even have engaged in the duel because if they had, for whatever reason, they would have had to win, right?
Okay.
Even though this swordsman is supposed to be better than them, their egos would not have allowed it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so if he duels with them and they say no reserve, he would have given them that out of respect and beat them, and they couldn't handle it, and then there's the end of your relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just the logic of someone like him dealing with the BMN. At some point, the BMN is just going to get infuriated, or their image. By contrast, they're going to get shown up, and that's the end of the relationship. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why he said, but in this case, this Lord is different. I feel it's very different in this case. So that's why, even though the Lord ended up in the pond and got mad at him, that wasn't the reason why he wasn't employed, right? He had hope then, because look, he's standing outside, he's looking in the door, he's seeing the guy's coming, right? He's enthusiastic. But then the 2 retainers come and say, look, it's not on us. We would actually employ you. Despite the Lord getting mad at you and your inappropriate humility and all of the incident in the pond, and that has nothing to do with anything. It's your doing that you don't get the job. It's because you were dueling for money. So up until that point, he was employed and he was right in his read of the Lord, right?
Okay.
that it didn't matter. This Lord was different, and he would have employed him regardless of his outburst and all of that.
Right.
But he was employed because of Ehai's dueling for money, right? Not dueling, but dueling for money. Yeah.
Right. And then the cool part is what he did with that money. He gave it to the poor and the sick.
Correct. The intent, in other words, and this is the deeper part of the movie, that a lot of the rules of the culture, which the tradition and the rules, which made it a very restrictive society in many ways, those rules were there, and they were very fast and hard and rigorous and unbreakable and unbending rules. They weren't rules made out of appropriateness. And the
Right.
Lord was aware of this, and this was his frustration. So was Ehai, right? So he said, look, my intent is more important than my actions. Or at least, this is why when he apologizes, yes, he apologizes for breaking his word. But inherent in that is also the understanding and awareness that, well, I had to, right? And she realizes he's apologizing as a measure of respect to her, to balance things, to try and put it right. But he didn't really have a choice. It's very subtle complexity there. It's very cool.
When the intent doesn't match the actions,
Yes.
that's when you have a personality problem. That's when you've got somebody that you really need to be cautious of.
Exactly. And in reverse, the intent of the non-dueling, yes, it's appropriate. But in this case, not always, because there's a difference between the two guys dueling to the death because they're idiots and, they're just satisfying their egos. That's a different kind of a duel than a duel for money, right?
Right.
In
Right.
Ojo, this is a challenge of skill, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't make it very clear the differences there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, and I don't know why, but I have this burning question that I'm going to explore probably sometime today or tomorrow. But, I don't really see where we can change people's anger, but I do see that we can diffuse it and get them to see a different perspective.
Yeah.
But that's done through diplomacy, correct?
Exactly. And think of anger as the train with a click.
Okay. You can
Right.
get them to change the tracks.
Exactly. And it takes very little sometimes. Just put them onto a different track. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I got to write that thought down.
It's about redirecting the anger, diffusing the anger. And sometimes, like in Aikido, right? You cannot, when you actually watch Aikido in action, if you just go and try and do an arm lock on somebody and they're in balance, right?
Right.
You can't do it. They'll just resist you. But so at first you extend them a little off balance. When you're off balance, then it's very easy to do an arm lock on them and turn them over because you're off
Yes, it
balance.
is.
So that's the key. So when somebody comes at you with anger, sometimes you take it on and you almost say, bring it on, like give me a bit more. Not in a confrontational way, but you say, wow, or you just extend their anger a little bit. Once it's extended, now they're a bit off balance because they're not expecting this. Now you can redirect it, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's hard to put into a direct application, but essentially to understand the underlying principle. One is not direct confrontation. That doesn't work. Two,
Right.
it's not say to just only direct, because now you're just putting that anger train on a different track. You have to take that train off of its steam a little bit, right? By making it, for instance, letting it run up a hill first or something,
Right.
to draw it out a little bit. So, when you're paying attention to the anger with earnestness, and you're saying, well, let me hear, what are you angry about? And they give you more of it. What happens then? They sort of off balance. Well, I'm not getting the reaction that I want, yeah, which is the combat, which is the fight. Yeah, and then it loses its point and its focus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, because you
have to think about it and look at how you can apply the strategy of, when it comes to anger, everything other than direct confrontation.
Right. Well, see, and I never want to
like
be I never want to be directly confrontational with, for example, I am seeing just massive amounts, and I'm trying to pull myself away from the community. But I'm seeing massive amounts of people who are carrying and spreading misinformation about narcissism.
There's all sorts of it all over. Yeah, yeah,
It's just all over the place, up to and including people making the statements that narcissists are inhuman. Of course,
yeah,
I don't agree with that.
yeah,
I just do not. They are human. They're conditioned, they're a product of their environment.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
But
found myself, it's like, why am
people have
why?
beliefs about all sorts of things. So we
Yes,
just have to accept misbeliefs as part of the state of the world, really.
yes. And we can't change that. But however, what they'll do is they will intentionally seek to feed themselves with more angry posts and more angry memes, and they
Right,
get together in
right,
this community. I call it the pitchforks and what do you call it, the torch and pitchfork community,
right,
where they
right.
just want to burn the witches
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah,
um and so I thought, okay, am I just would I be wasting my breath, my time, my energy in
yeah,
trying to help them
yeah,
change their beliefs? Or do I just leave it alone and just say, you
yeah,
know what, this is not my community. I cannot be around this negative energy,
yeah, yeah.
um,
So,
which I just can't.
try, yeah. So maybe try and apply it. Say, wow, that's interesting perspective, right? So you start off with not disagreeing.
Okay.
That's your keto right there. Now you draw them out a little bit, you're getting them off balance. So what do you mean by inhuman? Do you mean that they DNA, they're not human, they're like aliens, or whatever? You see what I mean? Now it's like, well, no, that's not what I mean. Do you mean that inhuman as in they have no capacity? At least it's totally impossible, etc. Now, well, no, not really. Well, technically, I don't know. Do we have any studies on this? Maybe it doesn't seem like there's a way they could change, but well, at least you know of one recovering narcissist. I know of two. Somebody else in the group, that Vanessa Jane Patrick, she had an interview with at least he was like the world's only recovered narcissist, truly recovered narcissist by his own. It's just kind of his thing.
Right.
So I know of at least two. So now you can bring those up. So, well, but there are these rare instances. Just because something is generally so doesn't make it always so. So we don't
Right.
know for sure. Wow. Okay. Yeah. See what I mean? Now you're extending the conversation. So at least you might not convince them that, well, there's little hope for them, but it's one thing to say inhuman, which is no hope, to little hope, right? It may be a
Right.
1% chance, but still it's a chance, right? So
Yeah.
you start at least
Well,
up the absoluteness. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's I think what concerns me the most is that the unwillingness to move beyond their anger. They on one hand, they're saying, I want to recover, I want to heal, I want to feel better.
Yeah.
But you're not going to feel better as long as you're holding
Yes.
on and
Yes.
feeding that
Yes.
anger.
Yes.
Kind
Again,
of like, kind of
exactly.
like those dojo warriors who were all
Exactly,
about,
exactly, exactly, exactly. I mean, they were such hypocrites. I mean, yes, they're
yes,
supposed to be better, but they want to go gang up on the guy altogether. How's this proving you better? Their egos just couldn't handle the
yes.
fact that he outdueled them.
Okay, all right. And that I thought, now why
Astonishing.
that came up is because
Yeah,
when I watched that movie, that happened to be in a particular situation. I had heard somebody, the guest, as a matter of fact,
right.
had said, well, these people are inhuman. And I was appalled. I was like, oh, okay, did I make a mistake? No, I did not make an error in my judgment or my request, but this gives me an opportunity to use diplomacy and to question further why this belief would be held.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so because I believe that
What's the payoff?
everybody,
What's the payoff?
there you go, there you
I
go, and that's what I
always
keep going
ask,
back to.
what's the payoff? Because if I say others are inhuman, by contrast, I'm human.
Mm,
Yeah. So a
yeah,
lot of times when you see people putting down others, they do so not because they're trying to be nasty or horrible, or they might be, but also it makes them look good by comparison.
it does.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
my last question for you is this, and this one is interesting. I know we're going to have to go soon, but I've had this question is, can because I've been trying to read up basically on all the different schools of thought of narcissism. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody really knows
No.
much more. They just don't know. Um,
Yeah.
it's a mystery. it's a personality disorder. So how are you going to know when there's so many different personalities out there, right? Over 7.5 billion of them. So how can a person with this narcissistic personality disorder, or even characteristics and traits, can they actually put themselves in a position to say, oh, I'm against narcissism. I want to, spread information. I want to make sure that, people are protecting themselves. But could they use that actually as a narcissist to develop and refine their skills? I mean, and to what purpose? What would the intent be behind doing that? To basically fool people into thinking that they're fine and normal.
Well, right there, that is the value. That, well, people thinking I'm fine and normal. I don't want people thinking I'm a narcissist. So disguise. Yeah.
Okay. So then that indicates, though, that people are aware that they do have narcissistic traits and just choose not to change it.
It could. I mean, it all depends. When we get down to that level of intent underneath, you can never be sure. That's why we have to have strategy and trust without trusting. You might meet the nicest person in the world, and there may be somebody who's learned to behave nicely to cover up the narcissism. And they might never actually display that narcissism. And all their behavior is, in actuality, always really nice and good. Right? It doesn't make it any different to the underlying reality. My reality is, and everybody who interacts with them, they only see a nice person. Does it matter what they are underneath? No, it doesn't. Right? So, yeah. So at some level, it doesn't matter what somebody supposedly actually is. It's their behavior that matters. And here's something really interesting that I've observed, at least to a large extent, right? I mean, as a generalization. If you behave nicely for the purposes of fooling people, and you do so really thoroughly, right? After a while, that sort of becomes habitual. And you just start behaving nicely, whether you now really actually want to or not. You do it. And functionally, it makes you a nice person, whether you are doing it for the intent of being nice or not. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you just say that habit turns into who you are.
Exactly. And they actually become nicer people simply through the habituation of it and the familiarity with it. And they start to see the advantages and bonuses and benefits. So even somebody starting off, in other words, for the wrong reasons, over time, that turns out to be a good thing. So it's the universe's way of tricking you into being nice.
Okay.
Actually being nice. Yeah.
So, in other words, I've been looking at this really closely, and I feel like narcissism there's so many different levels of it. It can be grossly misunderstood. At the same time, it could be beneficial in, say, the form of a salesman or marketing, promotion type people.
Exactly.
I can see that it's got its good and bad qualities.
Well, take that, rather than saying it with narcissism, take that same statement with ego. I don't think you'll find anybody today who will say that, when that quote that I like so much, ego is a tool. Yes?
Yes, I love that.
Idiot, that kind of a tool. And also it's a tool that you can use very positively, right? Without having any kind of an ego, you're going to be always negative towards yourself and pulling yourself down and self-criticizing and all of this stuff, right? And also, if you had literally no ego, you would make no effort to do anything that is in any way protective of yourself, or that adds to yourself, or taking care of yourself and all of this, right? So we need the ego just to function, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So narcissism, if you think of it as simply just ego gone a bit to the extreme. It's just extreme ego. It's the same word. And nowadays, when you use narcissism, it used to be back in the day when you said ego, it was the same thing. Yeah, the same connotation. Somebody who's full of themselves is a bully. We always say, oh, he's egotistical. Egotistical now means, or the same as narcissism, at least, so it used to mean the same.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just the change of it.
that
It's just
actually, I was going to say that actually puts it into a better perspective to remember it that way.
yeah,
And it doesn't necessarily, like you, I've known several people. One of my children, struggles with it. I myself have struggled with it apparently, but you know, and it's all a part, I see it, of learning, of
Yeah.
coming to that point of who are you really at your core.
So
So I don't
also
know.
ego, it leverages people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. Einstein, very much motivated by ego and greatness and sort of ambition and all this.
Yeah.
So when you look at this, so without that, you wouldn't have done all that stuff. Would have just, okay, who cares? Yeah. So ego makes us care. All right, it's sort of a roundabout way of doing it, but still, it leverages us to do more. So ego has much benefit and much positive. Like all of these things, it's a tool, simply a tool on how much you use it. So you can take your narcissism and turn it into a profoundly motivating tool.
I would have to agree on that. I absolutely do. And I guess what just bothers me is because I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that somebody would be so intentionally evil. And we had this conversation before between, is there good, is there evil? I just have a hard time wrapping my head around that people would do
It's just
stuff like this
unawareness. It's just
intentionally.
unawareness. Evil is unawareness.
Okay.
That's it.
That's, yeah, I was
That's
pretty certain on that one.
gross unawareness. And
Yeah,
when we're aware of that, then it all changes. And evil just takes away. Wow, now it's no longer evil; it's just unawareness. And
but
I
that's
can
the
deal
same
with it
thing with,
now. It doesn't mean that the actions are any more pleasant than they were before. No, they're still horrible actions. But I
yeah.
don't have this negativity towards it. I understand it and I deal with it. I take remedies. I get out of the way. I don't let it be perpetrated on me or others. But I don't have blame. I don't have anger. I don't have all of that stuff because I understand it's just unawareness.
Was it the same thing? Well, that's gonna say is anger could also fall into the category of unawareness.
Absolutely. Or
Okay.
poor strategy. Exactly. Anger is just poor strategy. That's it.
Okay. And that's where people they would get to a point of feeling powerless. A
Exactly.
lack of inner safety is when they just don't have that awareness.
Exactly.
Okay. All
They
right.
don't know they have options. They don't know they have options. Yeah. Most anger
Yay.
is out of frustration, and the frustration is because you don't feel that you have options.
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah.
get
Or
angry because I cared too much, and I didn't know how to resolve things. I didn't have the options. I got frustrated. Anger. Hmm.
okay. That
So you
makes
have anger
a
from
lot of
caring too much.
sense.
How messed up is that?
It just puts things into perspective is what it does. It answers a lot of questions that I had recently. So because I was like, why am
Also,
I caring too much? Why
yeah.
am I caring
Also,
about this?
yeah. So part of that is expectation, or the major part of it, really. Yeah, frustration, and like in that case, you have expectations. I expect you to be good. I expect you to learn. I expect you to grow. Right. So most anger, if you look at it really closely, it's you see frustrated expectation. That's what's being frustrated. It's the
I
expectation
like that.
that are being frustrated. So in other words, when you really break your anger down, you've got inappropriate expectations.
Frustrated, and it's inappropriate. You're
Yeah,
right.
no, but it's
Inappropriate.
what exactly is frustrated? Your expectations.
Yes.
You're expecting unreasonably because you don't have a solution, but you expect a result. Now you're frustrated. Well, that's kind of foolish. You don't have a solution. How can you expect a result? But you want it. You want it regardless of having the appropriate remedies and tools and everything. So you basically want something that isn't there. Yeah. Which is kind of a spoiltness, isn't it? Isn't that what being
Yes.
spoilt is? Is when you
Yes.
want something and you have no right to it. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yep.
when we see this as a frustrated expectations, it changes everything. And then you say, wow, but maybe I could just change my expectations, and then I won't be frustrated, and then I won't be angry. Go down to the
Gosh,
root of it. Think it through to the end.
there it is. And that right there could completely help somebody disarm their own anger.
Exactly. And now
Okay.
when you go, so this expectations can also be motivations, right?
Okay. Yes.
Frustrated motivations, frustrated expectations, inappropriate motivations, inappropriate expectations. Almost always, that's it,
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That one I'm definitely going to have to sit with and let it work through, because I can apply that.
Like make a little diagram with like arrows, connecting the stuff together. That
I
shows.
absolutely plan to, because that one itself, that just really helps answer a lot of, like even my own reactions and responses, both reaction and response to things that don't sit well with me. Asking myself why. Well, it's not always, that's where it is right there. Inappropriate expectations.
Why I say the most evil word is should.
Yes.
Almost every anger, every inappropriate expectation, inappropriate motivation, pretty much almost always should involved in some way.
There it is. Right
you get
there.
angry with somebody's behavior, but they're not doing what they should be doing. They're not who they should be. They're not behaving how they should be behaving. Should.
Yeah, and that's according to our expectations.
Exactly. It's an arrogance, in other words.
Yes,
Anger
it is.
Patience. It's a profound arrogance. We expect the world to go according to our expectations, our timetable.
Okay. Yep. Nope. Can't do that, because I do not.
When you now take it in the context of expectations, I'm angry because I'm expecting the world to behave and act according to how I think it should be. I think it should be. This is monstrous arrogance. So after that, it's very difficult to become angry again, right? When you see anger as arrogance. Because you can't be arrogant. It just goes against your whole way of being, right?
Yes, it does.
Impatience. You cannot be impatient anymore because you can't be arrogant. To expect the world to work according to your timetable. Likewise, you can't expect the world to act according to your expectations.
Definitely making a diagram on this.
I love those. That's so magical.
Can't expect the world to operate with my expectations.
Yeah. Or according to your expectations. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like you're imposing on the world. They're supposed to do this. So, supposed to is the cousin of should. Yeah. And
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, they're dreadful. Oh, they're terrible. They all go together. Yeah. Oh, you
Well,
must. No, I must not be so upset because the person has died. I'm happy. They're out of pain and misery. I'm thrilled that they lived a full life, and death is part of life. There's nothing to be upset about. It's a natural progression. They've come to that culmination of their life. I'm thrilled for them. Not must be upset. No, not at all.
Well, this actually, it's in many ways too. It's also giving me that permission. It's not that I don't care. It just gives me that definite my answer as to what's appropriate for me and what's not appropriate or inappropriate, as far as different things to focus on. I can't fight.
Exactly.
I cannot fight or that many people and change their mind. All I can do is right for me.
Exactly. So rather than change through combat, change through providing alternative examples. Yeah. So
okay.
I don't have to say you're wrong about narcissists being inhuman. I simply have to make a case to prove that they are human. I don't have to prove that they're not inhuman.
Right.
I simply have to demonstrate that they are human. Then your argument falls flat. So now I haven't said you're wrong, but I've simply made my case. Well, I believe they are, and here's why. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, it's possible. They could be. All right. Maybe, who knows? In an infinite universe of infinite possibilities, everything is possible. However, in my experience, I found that they certainly can be. They don't act this way. They don't behave this way. They behave inhuman, absolutely. But does it so? But I feel that they actually are, and here's why. So there you go, right? You don't have to disprove something in order to disprove it.
Okay. All right. I
Right?
am
You
I
follow.
am settled with this. I am settled with this, but I definitely I've got a couple of tasks
So
and
so
exercises.
if there's an argument between two people arguing, well, something is black or white, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you want to resolve this. What happens if you come and show them purple?
That that's an
You see
alternative
my point,
strategy.
right? Right. But suddenly they realize, wow, crikey, it's not about who was right or wrong. We were completely in a bubble, which it just becomes ludicrous now. Our whole argument is just become absolutely invalidated and nonsensical and unnecessary through this new awareness of purple. It just dissipates, it just falls away, it just goes away. They've lost interest in proving who's right or wrong because it's just totally just meaningless now, right? So you've just
Mm-hmm.
shifted the paradigm, in other words. So often by sharing, we can shift the paradigm, bringing colors into a black and white conceptuality. And this is very powerful.
And
Very.
that's actually how you present the way of impeccability, the program or the concept itself. Coming to that is just through introducing the color purple.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay. Okay.
Way
I
palette,
love that analogy.
whole palette of colors, right? In other words, rather than combat, which is the black and white mentality, I call it the mentality of opposites. We can use perspective shifting, multiple perspective, perception shifting, thinking things through to the end, paradigm shifting, overview perspective. All of these are tools that get us out of that mentality of opposites, out of that conflict mindset. Yeah. In other words, the superiority paradigm. Very cool.
Okay.
Very cool.
Oh,
There's more in other
okay.
words. There's more. So hey, I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. I don't know whether you're right or wrong, but I know there's more.
And that's what I always go back to, is that there's always got to be more to this
Exactly.
particular facet.
Exactly.
Because even though a diamond has multiple facets, there are facets within the facets.
Yeah. And I mean, I always say, so what? What? Sometimes I'll say, so bloody what, inside my head. But that so what is huge. And I ask, okay, so all right, the person really believes they're inhuman. Maybe there's some value to this for the narcissists. They don't want to be thought of as inhuman, so it puts pressure on them to change their behavior. There might be a positive to it from a bigger overview perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but they always say,
also, now if you're in a discussion, you can say, well, let's say you're the guest that has this idea. Say, wow, it's kind of powerful. Let's say I'm interviewing this guest. And wow, sure, that's kind of powerful, this idea that they're inhuman. This could really put some pressure on them because, they're very sensitive about their appearance and what people think of them. And I know they don't like to be thought of as evil, even though they do evil things. You ask them, no. They'll really argue that they're not evil. But inhuman, they don't want to be thought of as inhuman. So this may put some pressure on them to behave, with more humanity and to behave more appropriately and better. So that's powerful strategy. Whether or not they actually are inhuman or not doesn't really matter. It's a strategy. On the other hand, if somebody believes they're inhuman, this could actually take away any incentive for them to behave as a human. Because, well, I'm inhuman, I'm supposed to be inhuman, right? And this actually is, they've done studies on this, on people who believe in fate or not, which of the two are more moral in their behavior. Those who believed in predetermined, that it doesn't matter what you did, things would turn out, they were less moral than people who believed in free choice and that things weren't predetermined. Right? Because, well, the logic is, if it's all predetermined, does it matter what I do? So I can do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So likewise, if somebody believes they're inhuman, they get cued, like in that story of my friend Therese, where I was cueing her to be a bitch, and she thought, well, she's seeing my conception of her as being a bitch, and she takes it on as this is a reality, and then she started to behave in how a bitch was supposed to behave. Some part of our brains don't really think. They don't have discernment. They're just like computers. They catch an idea and then they behave according to what that idea is, even if the resulting behavior ends up being detrimental to the person. I saw in the boys, right? Oh, you're a fuck up. You're a troublemaker. Well, then
Right.
they behaved like a fuck up and a troublemaker, and they got hidings every day.
Same as with like the Breakfast Club. I'm sure you've
Right.
seen that
Queuing,
movie.
exactly.
Queuing.
Queuing. Exactly. So now I say, yes, you may be correct to you as a guest in this assessment. We don't know. It's hard to determine. But let's assume you are correct, right? To actually put it out there as a labeling may make the problem even worse. Because once they accept they're inhuman, it takes away all of their morality and they start behaving, as an inhuman, and this is how I'm supposed to be, and now that aggravates the behavior.
Yeah, it's
So
like, this is what you expect of me.
very
So,
cautious.
okay, you're going to get this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And labeling, in other words. So labeling, which is why I'm so against all of these psychological labeling, right? I stay away from all the
Me too.
diagnoses, all this. They tend to be reinforcing. Watch people.
Yes.
Okay, let's take it out of the psychological realm. Let's take it in the medical realm. Oh, I've
Okay.
got such a disease. I've got this syndrome. I've got this and that. People love to label and box. And what do? The moment they have this thing, they behave according to it.
They
It's
do.
self-proving. The label tends to aggravate and reinforce and entrench and habitualize the behavior. So labeling is very, very, very counterproductive. Negative labeling. We use this through our shift in our self-conception to say we are taking away that narrow boxedness and negative labeling, and we have a positive labeling, but not only positive, because positive can also limit you. It's
Right.
open-ended, and that's the difference in our subconcept. It's open. My label is one where I'm a grower, I'm a doer, I'm a changer, I'm a learner, I'm a more aware, I'm a whatever, right? So it's always open-ended. Yeah.
And that's what's important.
So now, you see, now you've got a discussion about inhuman, which has got nothing to do about whether or not it's right or wrong or accurate or inaccurate. It doesn't matter. Go beyond it. Yes.
Okay. Well, see, because I don't know why I'm a little bit nervous about doing this interview tomorrow. And it's just because part of it is because I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know.
Because you're anticipating confrontation because you disagree.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That
But
makes
disagree
sense.
doesn't mean that you have to have a confrontation. So
Right.
rather than saying I disagree, ask for understanding and say, oh, that's interesting, your perspective. I have an alternative perspective.
Seek to understand in a potentially, okay,
But
seek to
also,
understand.
in this case, you can express your opinion not as disagreement, but as an alternative perspective.
Okay.
Yeah. When we're looking into the diamond through a particular facet, and you're looking through a different one, right? Uh, we're not looking through things in the same angle, same direction. It doesn't mean I disagree with you. We're just looking at things differently. That's all.
Okay.
I have a different
That I'm
perspective.
digging.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I say, wow, that's really fascinating that you think this. So,
Right.
by implication, I'm supporting your perspective because, hey, it's a perspective. How can I disagree with the perspective? It's a perspective. And the moment I call it a perspective rather than an opinion or a belief, it all changes, right? Very subtle, very subtle. So I have an alternative perspective on this. Because now I'm by implication also saying, who's to know really what they are? We can't determine this for a fact. Only they can know themselves. So I can label it all I like. It's not going to make any difference. People have labeled me all sorts of stuff. And, many of them were grossly untrue. They had no idea. So we don't really ever know what's going on inside somebody. However, we can do what we can look at is the consequences on behavior of what we say and do, and particularly labeling. And now from your journey, you can say, look, I was labeled all sorts of stuff. And those labels really put a big, big, big constraint on me. The label of victim, for instance.
It did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now,
it did.
you see, now you're actually talking about this label of inhuman, but you're not even mentioning it. You've now shifted it to a discussion on the label or labeling, and you're using the example of victim. You're on a different track, right? But you're still dealing with the issue. You're applying a keto, in other words. You're redirecting, you're extending, and you're collapsing the argument, by taking their footing out, getting them off balance. Not in a negative way off balance, but just through this, taking the energy elsewhere. Yeah, it's
I
very, very
like
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
I like
I
that.
mean,
Well,
you
see, and
are
I,
actually arguing the point or discussing it, but not directly. Yeah, you're
right.
discussing labeling, victim, and all sorts of stuff, right? It's very powerful.
Yes.
The key is not to disagree, right? It's an
Right. Not to
alternative
disagree.
perspective, right? It's
Right.
a how can I disagree to say your perspective is wrong? It's a perspective. There's no wrong or right to perspective. It's just a perspective.
Yes. Well, and
There's no
that's
wrong
my that's
right to perspective.
that's my only confusing point. The part that I was most nervous about. Not so much that I disagree, but I am confused because their social media posts are all about, well, essentially bashing a narcissist,
Yeah, yeah,
pulling them down. But then the book, was the purpose for the interview. The book talks about, recovery aspects for
exactly,
the quote victim.
exactly,
So
exactly.
I just get confused. It's like,
Exactly. And here's the thing to say, look, let's look at this in a different way. Again, let's perspective shift.
okay,
Narcissist is somewhat of a bit of an extreme. However, how much narcissist is there in everybody? From my experience, there's a tiny fraction of narcissist in everybody. Same way as there's murder in everybody, right?
yep,
Or at least likely. Because you could say, well, I'm not a murderer. Say, well, if a murderer is looking to murder your kids, would you kill them to stop them? Yes. Okay. Well, there you go. So, okay. A murder is, for that's you could say, well, it's killing, it's not murder. You can get technical, but nonetheless, right? A killer then,
okay,
all right. So a killer is trying to kill your children. Well, you kill the killer in order to. Yes, okay. So we're all got killer in us. We all know this. We're capable of everything. It's how we use our toolbox. The tool itself isn't the thing that's good or bad. It's how we use it.
right,
So,
okay,
killing can be appropriate or not. It all depends on the circumstances. Yeah. So, as we all
okay,
know, it's about appropriateness. Now, narcissism, same way. Ego, same way. It's about how it's appropriate. My narcissism makes me at least get out of bed in the morning and
true,
tidy my house and stuff like this. You see?
very true.
So when you think of it as degree, now what we call a narcissist is just somebody who has loads of it, and a nice person has very little of it. But that doesn't mean I've known very nice people who, on particular points, can be very insistent on something. Okay, we might call it vanity, but what is vanity but just a form of narcissism? Yeah. Or what is
Yes,
self-pride as another thing. We say, like for victim recovery, you take pride in yourself. What the hell is taking pride in yourself but not a form of narcissism?
exactly.
So it's how you use it, not the thing itself. Yes, do
Yeah.
people get carried away and they get excessive with some tools? Of course. And they use them inappropriately. But the issue is appropriateness. See, now you've got a whole different conversation, right?
Yes. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, there was a lot of people who was like, why do you do so many videos of yourself, or so much of you? And it's like, well, it's because I'm the one who's presenting the material. Number one. Number two, my intent is to build my self-confidence in public
No,
speaking,
no.
being out in front of people.
Practice. It's practice. Just tell them, hey, look,
Yes.
I'm practicing. That's it.
Yeah,
I'm practicing
exactly.
being me. I'm practicing expressing me. I'm practicing putting myself out in public. I mean, remember, I had the staying inside thing, the phobia, agoraphobia, yeah?
Agoraphobia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one way of dealing with that, which is the same thing, not being wanting to be seen. Well, now you see me all the time. So I'm dealing with my own phobias and insecurities and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's
Yep.
practice. Yeah.
It's
And
really kind of cool too, though.
again, right? So to ask them, say, just that in this, there's an assumption of motivation and intent. If you go by the typical motivation and intent, which is people, looking to get ego and status and image, then yeah, it might seem inappropriate. But just in my case, my intents and motivations are different. And,
Yes.
not everybody's motivations and intents are the usual. So, it's something that can get us into trouble if we assume the typical motivation, like in this case. Yeah.
Right.
I don't have typical motivations. I do things for different reasons. I'm a different person.
That's right. I'm very
There's not
different.
just one reason for why I do things, there's multiple reasons.
Absolutely.
That's
Oh my
that's something
goodness.
people really struggle with, and they default to an assumption of motivation because in their world they've never ever seen not even one person not do something for typical BMN ego superiority paradigm reasons, right? They've
Yes.
never experienced this. So if you're making a post, a video, or writing a post, well, obviously you're doing it to promote yourself, to look good, to put yourself out, to get attention. Obviously,
Right.
but I mean, isn't this what everybody does? In their world, it is what everybody does. So be aware that if you do things for exceptional reasons, you have to go out, you have to go over and above, you have to make extra effort to communicate that you're doing it for the non-usual reasons. It's why the new
Wow.
nobility dress up in this ridiculously flamboyant, wild way that sets them apart. When you see them coming, you say, wow, that clearly is somebody who is other, who is different. And you don't put them in a box, and you don't expect typical motivations from them, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So immediately they in a whole different world. This is an other type of a creature, even though they are, a human. They're a completely different creature. So you don't expect them to behave with the typical motivations because, well, hey, and clearly you can see from their demeanor and attitude that yes, they dress, but they don't care a hoot about how they dress. They're not doing it obviously for ego or vanity. So it's like,
Right.
wow, what's going on here? Immediately their brain is in a different place. Yeah.
Right. One last thing that you just reminded me of. Um, Toya, Tao, the wife,
Tayo.
Tayo. She only had one kimono that she ever wore. Same one
Yeah.
every day.
Yes.
However, and I'm assuming what was in the box was fabric. She
Yes.
turned around and made him several kimonos, several pieces for his garment.
Yeah.
Putting his needs up above her own. I thought that was just a huge gesture,
But
and that was
also,
something that I just
it's a
remembered.
need of them both. See, his
What's
needs
that?
are her needs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and serving his needs was going to benefit her.
Correct. It's a
Okay.
collaboration. In other words,
Okay.
true
All right.
service is always a collaboration.
I
You can
like
quote.
that. I am. I really like that. Is always a collaboration and team effort.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, collaboration is different to cooperation, right? So teams can
Yes, it is.
cooperate, but collaboration is a different thing. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And those two definitely were collaborating, working in unison.
Yeah.
And it was
And
understood.
and also not just working in unison, but feeding off of each other. That, in other words, I take what you do and add it to me, and you take what I do and add it to you, and through this we arrive at a third moreness, which is more than each of us could have attained individually. This
Yeah,
is
they had
collaboration.
a
Yeah.
deeply integrated relationship. That was a very healthy relationship.
Right.
Was
So
something that I picked
collaboration.
up on.
Yeah, so collaboration is about an implementation of the understanding that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
I agree.
Yeah, that's what you only get that with collaboration.
Yes. Yeah. Cooperation is just,
In
yep,
other words,
okay.
it's counter leveraging. You could think of it
Yeah.
as mutually beneficial counter leverage. So that's a good delineation of collaboration. Mutually beneficial counter leverage.
I'll write that down. Oh, I'm so plugged up.
No, it's mutually beneficial, mutual counter leverage. Sorry, to be more precise. Yeah, because it's not only, it's the leveraging is mutual, on the counter leveraging is mutual, and the benefit is also mutual. Yeah. So mutually beneficial, mutual counter leverage.
Mutual counter leverage. Okay.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I like that. Okay, sir, I should probably let you go. I've kept you on almost 2.5 hours today.
No problem.
So-
Cheryl's coming soon.
We had a lot to cover, and this was a very positive session today. I look forward to writing up all my stuff behind it.
Always magic, it's always magic, always a joy.
I have a lot to catch up on, so I will talk to you
There we
soon.
go. So now you've got a nice movie to go back to if ever you need a refresher, because that movie you can watch again because it's intrinsically beautiful.
It is. It is. I had already planned on doing that, watching it. I like to
Yeah.
rewatch a movie to see what I can pick up each time.
Absolutely, it's very
So
good to see what you missed. Yes.
exactly.
Did CJ watch it with you?
Yes, he did. He actually
Okay.
fell asleep though towards the last half hour.
Okay, but that's good though, because I imagine he'd enjoy the movie also. Yeah.
He did. He absolutely did. And
Uh,
he's like, well, why didn't he fight him? So I had to stop and explain that. So
yeah. There's a lot of mourners there. A lot of mourners there.
there was.
Now that movie in terms of anger, very powerful movie.
I think so.
Because he doesn't deal, and anger is a very big topic in that movie, but it's showing the
Yes, it is.
alternatives, the downsides, other ways of dealing with it. Yeah,
Yes. And that was
yeah,
the important part.
yeah. And that's I mean, there's so much more to the movie, obviously, but in CJ's case, because anger has been an issue for him too, right?
Yes, it has been. It has been. But that's why I was also curious about, the questioning about anger was just because of, I just know we cannot change people. I do not believe we can change people. However, we can offer them
Yeah.
alternative perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can influence. We can suggest. We
Yes.
can give a hint maybe or prompt on that. But the same thing with the universe. It can't change us, but it certainly prompts and instant suggests quite strongly sometimes too, right?
Yes, it does. And it has been really tapping me on the shoulder lately, but that's
Yeah,
just because I'm more
exactly.
aware.
So
So
take your cues from the universe. Exactly.
absolutely.
Use the
Okay.
same methods. Yeah.
Okay. I will talk to you soon, and
Great.
you have yourself a wonderful day. So,
You too, sir. You too. You too.
okay.
You
Talk to you soon. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Brilliant. 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 Brilliant.